Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to OPC Season 2. I'm Kevin Averill Walker. Joined with me this evening is Matt Pixie Carroll. We're about to head into the final day of Week 5, starting things out with Mega going up against AHQ.
And there's no two ways about it. It's going to be a tough one for Mega. It's an achievable one, though, for Mega. The reality of the situation is, though, as much as they are only 4th in the rankings, AHQ very much within striking distance of 6th place sixth place Mega, rather. They are also looking incredibly resurgent right now, AHQ. Fresh off a win against Flash Wolves just last week. They're looking good. They're looking pretty unbeatable.
Now let's not forget the Mega Long series that Mega Thunder did have last night against Blank Esports. Went to a full 5th map in a best of 5 series, right onto the final time bank as well. Could have gone either way, but it was Blank that came out on top. So you got to think for Mega, this is their chance to come back in even stronger.
Exactly, right? There's kind of two sides to this as well, right? Get some opening words from both the teams, though.
Mega 的教练来说几句话，看看有没有。Do you have anything you want to say to HQ?
Last match was very close. This match won't be.
哦，其实很简单明了。上一场比赛其实有点势均力敌啦。这场比赛我把它翻得比较文言文一点点，就是看不到车尾灯的感觉。哎，有没有什么要回应的呢 ，Nick？
以他们近期来说啦，就像昨天、前天他们就是跟其他队友都打得很满。 但是其实真的有在看的观众都知道，他们总是会有人在戳啦。那一个队伍里面会有人在戳，那想赢是有点难度的。
对。好，看来双方2位都已经准备好，我们先握个手，心里后边一下。谢谢2位代表。好，精彩比赛。
That was Bradford Ross, otherwise known as Pure, the coach of Mega, and Coach Mentor of AHQ.
Brave from Pure, right? Because it's like this series won't be close. It's like you could just get 3-0.
Like that's the other thing. It's close in which direction. Like, you got to be a little bit careful.
What he's kind of doing is like he's covering his bases, eh? So it's like it sounds really threatening, but like if they get 3-0'd, he's like, yeah, see, I knew. I was still right, you know. But I want to
factually correct.
Yeah. To go back to what I was touching on just before that, though, is there's kind of two sides to this. Like you said, Mega, this is their chance to have a better performance than they had last night against Blank. AHQ, this is their opportunity to get a better performance than what Blank got, which would have them at least feeling a lot more confident in holding on to that 4th place now that they're tied again for score with Blank.
Let's take a look at what we have to look forward to tonight. Starting off is, of course, Mega and AHQ in the middle of the evening with Flash Wolves, the rematch against Marchi Esports, and then to round things out at the end of the evening is going to be Liberty Supreme and Blank Esports. And to catch everyone up on the current standings as well, after last night's proceedings, Audience still on top with Flash Wolves following close behind.
And this is an interesting situation from there on down because between 3rd, 4th, and 5th, it is really anyone's game who is going to get those remaining 2 playoff spots. With their win last night, Flash Wolves are much more secure in that top 4. It is nigh impossible for them to drop out of it. Mega, they could just barely scrape into it, but it is really about to kind of get closed out on them, right? Any more losses, and I think mathematically they can't actually make it in anymore, which would be a little unfortunate for them, but any more wins, and they stay much safer from that 2 in the relegation spots there, which are currently Machi and Liberland. So really, that's got to be the goal for Mega here as well. We did mention that last night. A good performance bodes well in terms of avoiding relegations. You want to have a similarly good performance here, even if you don't pick up the win. Ideally, you pick up the win. But like I said a moment ago, AHQ want to have a better performance than what Blank did last night for the sake of their own head-to-head against Blank.
All right, let's take a look at the teams now and get to know who we've got on both of the sides. Mega going to be the first ones up, same lineup as we've seen. We talk about the fact that for Mega, they've kind of spent a few weeks in the first round robin finding exactly which members they want in the starting roster. This is now the lineup that they've been working with for the second round robin. It's been their most effective roster. And the big thing tonight is Mega have the opportunity to really play smaller for AHQ because AHQ are in a spot where they are only barely, holding onto that top 4 position. And if Mega win tonight, that is going to potentially ruin their chances.
Exactly, that's the thing. If Mega do take out the win, you're completely correct there. AHQ would be relying on Blank losing to Flash Wolves later on in the round robin, given that AHQ beat Flash Wolves. That's the only way the score gets equalized there. And then it's all down to who wins the head-to-head between AHQ and Blank. Now, they could feel confident maybe in still winning that one, but you don't want to end up in that situation if you can so help it. You'd rather take out this win, and then Blank would need to beat Flash Wolves and then beat you in order to displace you from top 4. So you're completely right there. AHQ, to that end, had a bit of a rough run at the start of the tournament, were able to kind of hold on to that middle of the pack territory for a good while, just based off really their individual skill and the fact that they were just a little bit ahead of the curve compared to some teams, but other teams really started to ramp up. AHQ now, though, with the recent patch and into the second round robin now, like I said, really resurgent. I mean, to use the phrase second wind, I feel would be pretty apt. This is a team that was starting to maybe slump about halfway through Season 1, and they've really come back swinging now that they have started to come back.
And it's very interesting when you consider the last time these two teams matched up as well. When you really look at that, it was a 3-1 victory in favor of AHQ. Mega did take one map win, and that was on the Lijiang Tower first map pick. The other 3 maps were all AHQ, so it wasn't entirely one-sided. Mega did have a little bit of a blow against AHQ, but not nearly enough. Certainly not as close as Mega's series against Blank last night.
There were some interesting moments in that series as well, because if you look there in the second one, AHQ were the victors on Numbani, but it went to Time Bank, all right? It went to Time Bank, and it was actually quite close from there, all things considered. AHQ then pulled it out, and from there they did close out the series in fairly solid fashion. But again, you've got to go back to this thing that this is super achievable for Mega, both in terms of their initial performance against AHQ in this series, and then also just their improvements since then. But AHQ having improved themselves, you wonder if the gap is really just the exact same as before, even though both teams relatively have improved.
And now coming into this evening's match is Mega taking up the home side instead of AHQ on the away side. That means Mega will get map picks 1, 3, and 5. The first control, middle assault, and the end hybrid. AHQ will have map picks 2 and 4, the middle hybrid, and the end escort as well.
And this could actually be a big boon here for Mega. You expect something like Ilios out the gate for the control. That's the thing. They do get to get their kind of more favorable pick, and they are a team that has a really good control pick. They've got some really good assault picks as well. So those are two that they're actually very happy to have. They benefit a lot from having home side here. Of course, that doesn't define who's going to win, don't get me wrong, but it means that they have that very real opportunity to, if they do drop the hybrid in the middle, push it to match point on their home side pick, and that leaves them in quite an advantageous position on the whole. But of course, if they drop indeed both of the first 2 maps, then really getting that third pick assault is more of a saving grace than it is a boon to put you ahead. So it still remains to be seen, of course, how the series will play out, but this is actually a good position for Mega to maybe strike a blow against AHQ.
And it's going to be interesting for Mega as well, because do you actually take it to Ilios or not? AHQ have had great performances on Ilios so far.
Can you say Dizzy?
Blank in the playoffs of last season. Ilios just lost to Blank in Ilios last night, so it's still a difficult place to go, if anywhere. Once again, Mega beat AHQ on Lijiang Tower for last round robin. Maybe that's another pickup they go back to. Otherwise, who knows what we'll see. What's going to be really interesting here is, do Mega maintain that triple DPS? Does White continue playing all of those roles as well?
Yeah, I was just about to say the exact same. That was what we did actually see. The most recent change up for Mega was running triple DPS in like every permutation and combination you could imagine. But on the other side of this, of course, AHQ. And really, this is just a squad that's got some solid members across the board. You mentioned it with Ilios, and I touched on Dizzy here. This guy on the Widowmaker on Ilios Ruins, and even pulling out the Widowmaker in some other situations where it's useful, has absolutely shone above and beyond any other Widowmaker player in this competition, at least for this round robin. And they've got flexibility on the rest of these members as well, that they're not just stuck running that one thing. Dizzy himself is really solid on all kinds of heroes right now. He's really got the hit scan DPS down pat. He's got a very comfortable Pharah. They've got a very nice pharmacy combo between himself and this man here, Crappy. I don't know what that says.
Mega, come and get it. No.
Who knows? Who knows what it says? Come and get it, tough guy. Yeah, you think you're so big, Mega? I'll show you what's Mega. But to close out what I was actually saying there, on the whole, this is a team that has what they need to be very good on control. And generally speaking, they've executed well on those control maps.
And this is going to be I would like to say a little bit different from the last time that we saw Mega and AHQ, because back then you had an AHQ that was still kind of finding their feet with how Rapid fits in the team. You had a Mega that was running a different roster, and B, just kind of didn't look as clean as they do now. So I'm expecting more from both teams overall. However, you have to go back to the fact that AHQ beat Flash Wolves, and that looked amazing. Then you had another match for AHQ where, you know, AHQ just have never looked better than they are right now. And it's going to be scary because if AHQ have another dominant series where they look as strong as they were when they beat Flash Wolves, I mean, at this sort of stage, you'd like to think that AHQ have a really good shot at even getting a second place.
Yeah, and
I mean, a third place, I'd say, probably.
Yeah, well, and the reason we say that is because they came back absolutely swinging after this patch. Flash Wolves also adapted to this new patch really, really well. And on the whole, Flash Wolves are running at about the same level as the level of play they had when they won the grand finals of Season 1, right? AHQ came into that series against them. It was a long, hard-fought series, but they won it. And previously, the best I believe they'd gotten was something like a 3-0 or a 3-1. They had really struggled against Flash Wolves from really the halfway point of Season 1. So it was a very big turnaround. That's why we say this is the best AHQ we've ever looked. The home side pick, though, for Mega, not going to be going to Ilios. They are taking us to Nepal instead. I find this interesting because there was a time where we were saying Nepal is AHQ's favored control map.
That was old AHQ though. A new AHQ, it'd be interesting to see exactly how good they are on all these different maps, because I'd like to think they're going to be good on everything. They're fantastic on Ilios. We've already seen the evidence of that. Now going to something like Nepal, what I'm really expecting out of Mega instead is utilizing some of the tricks that they showed in last night's matchup. So we did see the triple DPS. Do they bring that back out again? There's a good Junkrat section of this map on Sanctum as well that both teams can really utilize, and we know that Mega have played, as you sort of mentioned, every permutation of these different DPS combinations, and that has included Junkrats in there as well. So that's probably the number one thing to consider, and I would like to believe as well that Mega have good preparation on this map coming in.
You'd think so, and that's the thing. It's with the map pick here, you know, if you're Mega, you only pick it if you've got a plan. That kind of goes without saying. I do still think there is that element of boldness to it, I suppose. You're right, that was sort of a previous incarnation of AHQ, but all things considered, this does feel just like a better version of that AHQ, both in the pickup of Rapid and also just in the general quality of play so far in this second round robin. But it all comes down to what actually happens on the map on the day, and well, that's about to start.
It does appear like we may be getting into at least, well, White's going to be on a DPS and Enzinar is going to be on a support. So Mega, once again, they're really changing things up. And just when you thought you might have figured this team out, and certainly if your AHQ did some homework yesterday, well, a few new tricks.
And that's interesting because Graceful has been a diva player in the past, but that's 1-for-1 so far. Good catch on Eric, and now unless Dizzy can get a good amount of work done, they do have the ground control, which is the good news, but if they lose Hiki and are able to keep us mech alive, they're looking all right now, AHQ, despite that 1-for-1 being potentially dangerous for them, but Mega just can't seem to get out into this open ground with the aerial control Dizzy has.
Yeah, didn't really have any spatial dominance, especially to kind of push Dizzy away to make sure he doesn't have good angles to play with. Now, this is a very quick attack from Mega though, so you do have to respect the aggression coming out in AHQ. They do have to tie this one over.
They do. That's a mech trade, to be sure. Dizzy, though, getting the damage done. They need to displace these key members here. And Enzinar are able to stay topped off. Now Fudo with the tactical visors wanting to close out, and he's doing so out of sight of Dizzy. But Dizzy and Rapid are getting the other kills, and Fudo getting shut down now by Rapid. That's going to be him looking for the closeout, and Enzinar finds it, and that's the point cap for AHQ.
And Rapid, a really big part of that. And AHQ, good patient play out of these guys in general. Crappy with the sound barrier as well. They waited for the correct moment to really jump in there, and they made sure they got the correct targets. For Mega, that was an aggressive play. It was good timing on the attack, but once again, it was coming down to the fact that AHQ, they saw what was coming, and they countered it.
That was good positional play as well. They were able to preserve their ultimates because they won that fight more positionally. And Mega did commit some into that. So now with this rocket barrage, which is going to zone all these members out, they have to commit the sound barrier to get out, but they make it work. Getting the kills through as well, instant conversion. AHQ maybe being a little bit hasty on that one, hadn't quite drawn Mega out to get any kills with that, and weren't quite able to successfully zone them fully. That was a very clean fight from Mega.
And AHQ needed to have the Transcendence play there because this should have been a defensive hold still for AHQ. They don't really have too much progress to work with just yet. After 2 fights being played, a third one just finishing now, 37%, nothing really to write home about. Mega's been playing this game very quickly so far. They've been forcing constant fights over and over again, and that just means for AHQ, not enough progress on the point.
Instant catch onto Dizzy as well, so again, to speak to not enough progress. This is looking really good for NHQ just because they might be able to sneak out a cap, but with that getting stopped up now, they do get a kill on NZNR, and they're actually kind of throwing Mega for a bit of a loop here. Aputo going to be able to wheel back and has the tactical visor when needed. Going to open it up on it now as AHQ start moving for the point, but he blocks out a chunk of it. Aputo not able to get too much done and is stuck in the corner. That's a good catch by AHQ, giving them a leg up now in the fight as they go for the hard commit. The self-destruct catches Graceful as Mega now all out of tanks. Going to lose the rest of their members as well. Didn't quite get the sneak through AHQ, but by threatening it, they actually displaced Mega's otherwise superior positioning.
And this time around, you did see the support ultimates coming out. Carries with the Transcendence, blocking out Aputo's damage. Taking him out of the picture was a big part of stopping Mega. Now Crappy's going to have his own sound barrier up again. So for AHQ, they're starting to get this progress on a little bit of a roll. They need to get a decent advantage here because Mega's pretty close to 47 so far. So for AHQ, they got to win this next fight with the tactical visor, use the sound barrier as well to combo, and that should be all they need.
Certainly should be is a dangerous thing to say though, because there was a fight where should have been all they needed was a rocket barrage out of Dizzy. So let's see if the tactical visor does a little better. Graceful able to pull back, and Mega needs to make a proactive move before too long. Sound barrier out to cue it. Instant conversion onto Dizzy. So you say should need the tactical visor. Well, they don't have it anymore. Don't quite get the closeout on Hehe, but they pressured the tanks off, and T1 is able to follow up now. Eric's going to have to disappear from this one. They're going to get the respawns in, but honestly, Mega should be able to get the cap before that becomes a factor for AHQ.
And once more, you have to respect the kind of aggression coming out from Mega. They do pull the trigger a lot quicker than AHQ so far, especially in scenarios where you expect AHQ to do that first. Well, again, they had the ultimates to do so. They had that sort of advantage. They waited long enough for Elf to get his sound barrier. Elf had a slower sound barrier than Crappy. Crappy should have had that first engage, and Dizzy, well, I mean, he just died to the tactical visor, so now AHQ are just so far behind.
That's massive because AHQ are about to get a huge lead in terms of defensive ultimates. This is an interesting use here from NZNR. They maybe didn't need it. They're looking to get a route or maybe force out some ultimates. If they win one more fight, then they should be able to close it out, but they're actually a little lean on ultimates now.
And that is the problem because for Mega, they need some options to actually close out the game. You're heading towards the later part of now Nepal Village, so when you get to this end part of the game, both teams need the tools to finish it. Currently, AHQ just have a lot more. They have all 6 ultimates now. They've been saving for a long time. That might have been a mistake to start with, but we'll see how they can execute now.
False bomb from Rapid does go wide to open it out, but they get the kill on NZNR anyway, and Dizzy gets aggressive. Aputo does not get the same work done as he goes down to Dizzy. They've got time for an extra fight here, but AHQ didn't commit too many ultimates. They've got some still to hold on to this point.
And that's the biggest problem for Mega now because they have time for a second fight, but they don't have time to build those extra ultimates. Aputo's already used his one. White doesn't have anything either. Don't have a sound barrier. Graceful might get demeg. This could just be all over before it even starts.
And it was because they got the pressure on Graceful. He was going to be the only member in range to actually force a contest on the point. That was a little bit rough for Mega. It was winnable in the strictest sense of the word, but by the time it was in that at that point, rather, in terms of progress, they were in a kind of unwinnable situation, just in terms of how the ultimates played out and how close AHQ actually were to completing the cap themselves. A little unfortunate.
The other thing to consider for Mega right now is exactly how they're handling the roles on this roster, because within 1 week, and certainly even within one evening from last night to tonight, they've still made some changes. Now NZNR's gone on to support. Graceful is back onto the flex that he started out the entire season with. And I do understand why White is now playing the DPS. He was a DPS player coming in from Detonator Korea, and he's a very good one at that. But these are some pretty late changes, fairly late into the tournament.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's late into the tournament. You don't want to still be figuring stuff out at this point in time. This is going to be great pressure out of AHQ, able to move Dizzy forward and just kind of move that siege line upward, if you will. This keeps Mega now kind of trapped in these corners looking for a way to get on the point. No one did just yet from the side of Mega, but AHQ have the ground and are going to get the point here unless Mega find a way to contest.
And Mega need to make a choice here. Are they going to go for Dizzy on the high ground, or are they going to take the rest of the team on the cap itself? Because so far, they're kind of staying a little bit too far back, and now Dizzy has a lot of free reign here. Does get challenged somewhat by White, and White actually L takes him down.
Yeah, that was exactly what they needed to do. Actually, they were able to last out and catch Dizzy because AHQ kind of had to fully rotate. Dizzy was in a very exposed spot there, and Mega have completely capitalized. AHQ do get a cap in among that, but they're not going to get much time with it. Mega are going to get the point and have a couple of useful ultimates charged up as well.
Yeah, the best part is Apudo got a decent number of kills there. That means he's got a really quick tactical visor into this next defense of the cap. AHQ don't really have much of a lead, so similar to what we saw into Village, a nice early cap, but not a very big lead from AHQ. They need to come back in a big way now, and this is where Junkrat is a little bit weaker because you can't really siege up if you don't have the cap itself.
On Village as well, their lead was slightly bigger than this and ultimately was what kind of aided the win at the end. So having that little bit less, you've got to really worry that Mega are going to be able to overcome you towards the end here. Pulse Bomb wide now, out of Rapid. Fight breaks out, but it's AHQ going for the big commit with Mega just kind of happy to absorb it with these ultimates they have at their disposal. They do have to commit a chunk for it, but AHQ did commit some ultimates of their own there.
So it was an interesting, I like to say, high ground fight there on the battlements. No one really went to the cap, so there was kind of two ways you can go about it. Mega kind of prefer to be fighting in this sort of position as well, and I guess so do AHQ, but that also means as an AHQ attacking team, you have no camp pressure. You're not really splitting the Mega defense up, and Apudo, he can just hold up right in the background, and he can get a lot of kills and a lot of work done with that tech visor.
What they have got now, yeah, here's this Rip Tire. Apudo needs to be able to shut this down. If he can, though, that's actually a really good force out of NZ and now going to throw the Rip Tire in. Catches Elk. It's one, but they're happy enough with that. But Dizzy hasn't actually been laying damage on this fight. So Mega do have this window to commit and convert kills quickly as they catch carries. That's a self-destruct out of Graceful. They don't quite close out on the kill. He's able to get back in the mech, but Eric is doing the work anyway. Losing White here could just spell disaster for Mega. They've pushed up a ton of progress on the point. Should now just be happy to not use any further ultimates, back away from this, extend this past that 90% mark, and then AHQ have got a long defense ahead of them.
Now you're starting to see the lead that Mega has retained that they used to beat Ardian on Ilios. This is how Mega can now formulate a game plan to close everything out. AHQ do not have any more space to make errors. They don't really have too many ultimates to play with as well, so they're going to have to win the next fight on fairly dry, to be honest, fairly lean on what their tools actually are. The biggest thing to take note of here is to keep Dizzy safe. Make sure he can lay the damage and the siege down and already going down.
Yeah, unfortunately. And now the self-destruct is the only tool they have. Kind of hard to place that. And they've got Keras cornered off to the side. Mega very much in control of the spiders. They take one of the other tanks off the table now. And that sound barrier is the only tool AHQ have left to use. But it's not enough. Mega just have all the pressure here with all this positioning without Dizzy kind of displacing Mega. They can't really keep up here, AHQ.
That's going to be an issue because they have to just go onto the cap now. They don't have time to wait for too many respawners. Tactical Visor is going to clean up a decent number of players.
They should be able to, yeah, it's pressure on the point, if nothing else. And the if nothing else is crucial there because that's a great pulse bomb out of Rapid. With NZNR dying a little bit earlier, there is a window if Rapid can just go off, but they need to be careful with how they do it. They're on the cusp of losing his mech here. They're still waiting for Eric to come back in. Rapid goes down now. NZNR is about to come back in with a Transcendence that can save the tanks that are still holding the point down. Good move onto he stops him from remeching. That's the double Transcendence now. Mega should be able to close this out. What are all these environmental kills, man? The floor is made of ice, I suppose, but this is well set up here. Unless White can pressure him out, they may not be able to close out, and the AHQ are really holding on with that extra little bit of damage.
This does look like it should be a cap eventually for AHQ, but once again, Dizzy goes down, just requires a little bit more protection. Still though, Eric is managing to return the rest of the trades, and Mega's throwing a lot into this fight.
They're getting the kills though. They're able to get Graceful before he can get back into the mech, and that does just mean it's a resource that Mega now won't have if another fight comes about, and it is indeed looking like it'll be another fight. Look, these counter kills are useful here to an extent from Mega, but all they're really doing is recharging ultimates that Mega have already used up.
The other issue here is for Mega, at what point do you have to say, we have to give this fight up, because you're already at 99%, you are just trying to win this game, but at the same time, even if you lose this next fight, you don't necessarily put yourself in a really bad spot. You do, however, if you start throwing too many ultimates, you start committing too much in this 99 fight, and now you don't have the tools to come back in when AHQ are threatening their own overtime.
That's a good opening pick, though, and instant damage onto Eric. AHQ trying to get a little bit too clever with the position, but now too lean on members. Rapid is at least able to force the overtime and getting a nice stick onto Elf, but he's really the only one still in this fight. Crappy gives him a sound barrier to give him just some more room in the fight, but no, goes down to the tactical visor, and Mega being able to get the regrab in there are going to even it up on Nepal.
A good cleanup at the end of the day. Apuda, once again, with the tactical visor, has had so much value in this match so far. Haven't seen as much damage come out of Dizzy on the Junkrat. The Junkrat is a good starting pick, I feel. You get good damage in initially in an ultless scenario when both teams are gunning for that high ground. Past that, though, as soon as AHQ actually lost the cap over to Mega, Junkrat is not good to re-attack into. It's great when you're sieging down damage, when you already have the cap, when you're defending the cap, and you're just laying it into chokes as Mega have to come out. Other than that, it's not as useful, and you can see why at the end of the day, Apuda got much more work done.
Looking to bring that same Junkrat out the gate, though, on Shrine. I nearly called it Sanctum, but it's Shrine.
Shranktum.
Shranktum. It sounds like a
Shrivelage.
Shrivelage. Oh, wait, hold on.
Means something.
There's one to one now is the scoreline on Nepal. And yeah, Dizzy committing to the Junkrat here, but Mega were able to actually deal with it last time. AHQ did get a cap, but Mega then got it straight back off them. So if they can deal with the Junkrat in the same way, then they should be able to set themselves up nicely here.
The biggest problem is, can Dizzy deal with himself, because he needs to land some of this damage. This is just blind fire, it's not targeted. Meanwhile, on the other end, Apudo's damage is targeted. He knows who can focus here, and that's so much more useful for Mega.
And the other thing as well is with Dizzy not getting the kills or really getting the damage out, this actually just leaves Mega at a numerical advantage on the point, which they have now used to convert as they demech Hehe as well. And unless Rapid absolutely goes off, which it isn't looking like is going to be a possibility, Mega do get the cap, set themselves up fairly nicely.
I don't want to harp on too much about compositions here, but a couple of questions have to be raised about AHQ's choices. It wasn't too good to say under the Junkrat later in the stage of Sanctum, and it's certainly not a good choice now to start with Junkrat. You haven't seen much impact. Dizzy now, if you can get a lot of kills with this, then things might start to change.
Really trying to thread the needle, but he finds when he got there, the whole point was bare, and yes, it's been spotted. And while he's busy driving it around, Dizzy gets taken out by White, who knew that that was coming. So again, numbers advantage on the point now for Mega, and the one ultimate AHQ delivered is off the table, but they get the cap through. Just because Mega had to abandon it, they're able to get a pretty quick re-aggression though, so that's only a couple of percentage points for AHQ, but it is at least percentage points that Mega don't get. And unfortunately, losing Graceful's mech at the end there, it's actually good news for AHQ.
Yeah, it's a good consolation prize for AHQ when you have to consider, in the grand scope of things, that 8% will give them a little bit of extra buffer time, and every second does end up counting here, and every percent is actually 1 second anyway, so AHQ just getting themselves a little bit of extra.
Good aggression onto T1, but he's going to be able to have the Primal Rage they commit. First, the Transcendence to match the Sound Barrier. Again, AHQ getting a cap through in the middle of that. Again, though, it is going to result in Mega turning the fight around pretty quickly, getting back onto the point. Didn't have to commit too many ultimates for it either, all things considered, especially given that AHQ committed a bunch. But again, they're sitting in a situation now where that is about 10-15% of time on the point that they don't have.
And pacing of the game so far has gone where AHQ aggresses, Mega back off. Unfortunately, they back off far enough that AHQ actually flip the cap over. Then Mega come back in. They bait the AHQ members out, spread their team thin, collect the kills, and recap it. Every single time this happens, AHQ's collecting a little bit more progress. It's not quite enough just yet for them to pressure themselves in for a win, but at least for Mega, they have to stop these flip overs from happening in the first place.
This time around, though, AHQ have a lot more challenging things to fight through. Good aggression onto Dizzy, but that will be the Transcendence out to give him leg room, and he gets aggressive, finds NZNR. Wasn't quite able to block that one up, Graceful. Now looking to get further aggressive. Oh, bit too deep, and he walks into Apudo's own tactical visor, and it is Apudo just getting a little bit more work done. Eric does live, but he's barely got any health and can't really influence the fight, while the rest of his team is also very much worse for wear on the point itself. It's NZNR and White able to kind of keep the point on lockdown now, and this is now looking to be the final fight, because this time AHQ didn't get a cap over in the middle of it. Sound barrier now for Mega as they close out these last few kills, and it's looking like they're going to get off to a similarly good start compared to last series against this team. Rapid does get one back with the Pulse Bomb, and they are going to fight to the last, but White is running circles around these members. Here he demechs just shy of the point, and it's just going to be Eric with the Primal Rage if he can get it in time, stalling out, but I don't think he will actually get it in time here. They are very close to this one, but another Pulse Bomb now out from White, and that's the closeout on Eric. That's really the last member who had a big chance to swing this one around for AHQ.
White's been a huge proponent of the success from Mega so far. Despite other members going down, he's creating space for Pudo to really have moments, and now this is Pudo's another moment for him.
Exactly. That is a nicely placed defense matrix, but on the whole, Mega can just get aggressive, force AHQ back off the point, and convert that final cap as needed. And that was, on the end there, actually really commanding out of Mega. Look, AHQ got time on the point, but it was because Mega would back off, give them space, and then re-aggress when they had a more favorable position. Essentially, they were making AHQ overextend a little bit, so you can look at that as being a shutout, at least in terms of who was actually winning all the fights, because it was Mega winning every single fight on Shrine. Nearly called it Sanctum. Shranked. It's like the ghetto version of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Like, what happened to the kids? I shranked them.
All right, yeah, but otherwise, with that now, it's 1-0 in Mega's favor, and almost mirroring the last time these two teams met up with each other, which was Mega taking out the control. But now we'll see if Mega can continue this run forward, because what's interesting so far is two things. One, for AHQ, not as clean as we've seen them in the past, a little bit less decisive, and some of those moments were quite clear. Some moments on Village when you thought AHQ had the lead and they didn't quite carry that lead on through. They still managed to take that win. And then on the other two maps, we go to both Shrine and Sanctum. Some questionable plays for some members. Dizzy realized the Junkrat wasn't doing anything partway through Shrine, so he quickly changes up. The problem is, we already handed tempo and control over to Mega, and AHQ were just fighting from behind for the entire match. They had some good camps, but not quite enough at the end of the day. Yeah,
exactly. Fighting from behind, and at the end of that, Dizzy just wasn't having the same impact as Apudo was on the Soldier. Junkrat in the mix or no, right? And also, you can't help but feel that maybe that was too late a time to realize the Junkrat wasn't working. Because you said it yourself, it's a useful tool for that opening skirmish, but actually, even the first time they pulled it out on Sanctum in that opening skirmish, it didn't actually have the right effect because he got picked off and the fight very quickly went Mega's way after that. So you do have to question that a little bit, but let's take a look now at some replays coming in first to Village.
Yep, and this Village replay is going to be in the overtime on the final push out from AHQ where they secure everything. This is when they have the 6 ultimates banked up and they have a huge cleanup against Mega. The mistake here from Mega was that Mega decided to commit. Now, it's kind of 50-50 here, because if you don't commit, you're too concerned that AHQ get too easy of a victory and they're going to close out the match because it's too close to overtime. On the other hand, if you do commit and you lose, you have no options to come back in with. The actual concerning thing from AHQ was the previous fight right before that one. AHQ had the positioning and ultimates to win anyway, and they got fully wiped despite having all the tools.
Exactly. The thing is, right, actually, Village was quite close, all things considered. What ended up swinging it was actually when AHQ did get that final cap. It was too short an amount of time for Mega to get an extra fight. That ended up being the decider, and it was good for HQ to set themselves up. But now looking at onto Sanctum here, this is a little bit later on, and you can see the Junkrat has still been in the mix. He's a long way away from Riptire. He's also the first casualty of the fight, because honestly, Mega were really quick to figure out how they were utilizing this Junkrat. Off the back of this fight, they get a cap, and suddenly AHQ find themselves in the position that they had just put Mega in, where they didn't actually have time to get an extra fight at the end.
And that was actually the first time that AHQ had a good fight. Well, actually, the previous fight was the first time they had a good fight. They actually secured the cap, but then that had to be the important one where Dizzy's damage needed to really count. And I remember saying at the time, Dizzy is the tool here. He needs to live. He needs to get a lot of opening damage with grenades, and instantly he goes down to a Helix rocket. And it's just not the kind of thing that needs to be happening here. You've got to question, where was the protection? Where was Dizzy kind of looking out for that as well? It's just a bit of a random kill that shouldn't have happened. If it was a Tracer coming from the flank, if it was White, for example, coming and killing him, different story. But getting long-range sniped by a Helix just shouldn't be happening.
And that's the thing, right? The Soldier needs the sightline to do that. You as the Junkrat don't actually need the direct sightline to be throwing out that damage. Like you said, where were the tanks? They've got the Winston Bubble, they've got the Defense Matrix out of D.Va, and you've got the health pool of those tanks as well, right? Plus it is a projectile, it is not hit scan. I mean, I can't say that there's no reason Dizzy should ever die.
Also, you don't get one shot by rocket. You need damage plus rocket.
Exactly. I don't want to say Dizzy shouldn't have died to that, like that shouldn't happen, because look, the reality is sometimes it is going to happen, and it was unfortunate that it happened at that exact moment. It was good play and good placement by Apudo to fire out the rocket at that particular moment. You'll say it's skill, but it may have had a little bit of something else involved. You know, don't want to use the L word, but certainly can be a little bit that way. But I mean, it placed, right? It landed, and that ended up being the decider. You can't help but feel you can't help but feel once again, had he been on the soldier with that biotic field down, that Helix rocket can't have been a one shot because that other damage wouldn't have also been able to connect early enough, close enough rather to the time. It is a new map though. New day, I suppose.
New opportunity.
Exactly. It's going to be Hollywood as well. The land of opportunities,
So this is where you do want to see that good macro play that we've started to know AHQ for in the second round robin to really start to shine, because this is how they beat Flash Wolves. They had such clean plays, such clean decision making. A lot of it was off the back of Eric, who, if I'm correct, was the MVP of that series, and deservedly so. He still did have some really good moments here. He was one of the few members where, if you remember on Shrine, it was Dizzy dying to the tactical visor to Apudo, but Eric immediately getting the trade in. Just really good target prioritization, which is what we know him for from watching that Flash Wolves series. So now going to Hollywood, AHQ, can they do it again?
You would certainly think so. And of course, Mega themselves have had some very, shall we say, here and there performances on Hollywood specifically. So look, it'll be interesting how it all plays out, to be sure. The thing I've really got to consider here is AHQ didn't seem to play as smoothly on Nepal as we know they can. Mega didn't play super smoothly either, but generally speaking, they look solid. They've got these kind of, not roster changes, but position changes in terms of who is playing what. So you certainly feel that they're going to have some time just coming into their own in that. This is an opportunity for AHQ. You feel like this is the place where they should be able to return to their old form and take advantage of the fact that Mega maybe aren't in their final form.
Well, this is where AHQ can really slow things down, and we do know they like the more slow controlled gameplay style, just like Flash Wolves now do. When you look at the Mega side and we really consider where the role swaps are, White has been pretty good on Tracer. He showed that on specifically Shrine. A huge force to be reckoned with, and he was one of the DPS players again from Detonated Career when he was picked up, so it does make sense to put him back on the DPS. And what must have happened internally for the Mega team is they decided, actually, White is one of the best DPS players on this team. He should be playing DPS. Graceful was a flex player anyway coming into Season 2, so put him back onto the Diva. And well, for Inzidana, you got to fall in to where Graceful's old spot was. So the biggest question I have is actually for Inzidana. How is he going to fill into this? Because there is a lack of experience on the support role for him.
And that's something that AHQ can be taking advantage of, like we say. You know, taking advantage of the fact that Mega aren't in their final form here, but it is going to be, again, out with this Junkrat. Trap gets spotted, though, so yeah, Mega, they've done their homework. They know what AHQ have been running here.
Well, let's see how much work Apudo can get done onto this McCree. Dizzy's not quite ready to give up on the Junkrat just yet, even though the trap was spotted out. You're looking for a lot of good damage while Mega are kind of holed up on this high ground, where they kind of hold up in a tight, narrow space.
That's a solid Bionade onto Graceful. Good pressure on Apudo, but he has at least got the opening pick, and they don't convert the kill onto Apudo. Now you're in the situation where actually Dizzy, because he has to sit back from the point, can't affect that part of the fight too much. And the pressure is put onto AHQ to get aggressive now and displace Mega, who are themselves getting aggressive now. Not quite getting that first third through, but they're getting some good pressure back now. AHQ, this is what they've been after, and stalling for that EMP ended up having to pay off there. Unfortunately, White not quite able to pull back out of the fight, but the other three members do.
It's a nice early EMP as well. For Mega, they knew their time was ticking down. It's a bit of an hourglass. You only have a certain amount of time before the EMP becomes a real factor. So Mega trying to make some plays happen while trying to kind of mitigate Dizzy's damage with those Junkrat grenades. But Mega just couldn't quite find the opening. Still, though, it's a bit of a slow composition. Kerry's taking down Inzidana early, makes this even slower.
And that was a good dive by Eric as well to kind of catch Apudo, who couldn't quite retreat safely. In a similar situation, just a couple of kills, and Mega know that they have to back off.
That's where the problem kind of lies for Mega, because they are running a slower composition where they want to wait a little bit. They need Apudo to find some picks on the backside. They need to really take their time with the McCree. At the same time, AHQ, totally works in their favor as well because they're waiting for EMPs. They want maximum damage output from Dizzy as well, who by the way is nearly at that Riptide.
And by winning that fight in the middle there, they're going to be able to get this EMP up in time. They're going to commit hard to this one as well, Eric, with the Primal Rage, because again, with the opening pick on White, extra picks from that point on are really, really good for them. Look, Mega can maybe get to the point where they get all 6 ultimates up, but they'll be against all 6, maybe only 5 of AHQ's ultimates, but one of those is the EMP. That ultimate advantage doesn't count for much.
And the bigger problem is Mega actually have to wait till pretty much the overtime to make that one happen. AHQ are expected to win this next fight. They have an EMP available. They have a Riptide if they want to go in that direction as well. Everything looks like it works in their favor.
That's a great position in from Rapid. Dizzy does go down while he's channeling out the Riptide, but he goes 1-for-1 against White anyway, and the rest of the team had already been picked off on the point by AHQ. So again, solid hold. Ultimate's committed now out of both sides for that one.
You're at the sort of stage now in the game where Mega realistically have 2 more pushes remaining. You don't expect them to get too much done in their next push. Could be wrong though, because Inzina with a really well-timed Transcendence into an Elk Sound Barrier to clean things up allows Mega to finally get aggressive. That may just be what you need to dislodge Dizzy, and certainly you'd be doing that before the next EMP.
That is a very fast Transcendence, I suppose. They do get the conversion onto Crappy, though the Sound Barrier keeps them alive for even longer still, as he does lose his mech in the mix to the self-destruct, but he's not going to get back in it. That is big. Rapid now, little low, but not quite getting closed out. There we go, able to pick him off, and Dizzy going down as well. They do lose a Pudo, but this is Mega finally starting to break the hold.
Yeah, well, when they get the double support ultimates, they get to break past all their damage output from Dizzy. The biggest problem here was you didn't get the EMP commit out of carries. You didn't get this. You didn't get the nano boost onto Eric either. So just a couple of misfires on the AHQ side. They're still going to come back in though.
Because they've got the EMP, they're happy to, but going 1-for-1, losing Crappy. Graceful could self-destruct here. Actually can't quite. Still the EMP was affecting him. They're getting a couple of kills and sort of trading it a little here, but they're having a hard time closing out. White though, as needed, going off at the final possible moment. Now AHQ having committed a lot of ultimates. They're happy to have got a few out of Mega as well, but the cap does complete.
Oh boy, the third Tracer to play on this team, Mega, so far, he may even just be the best one. We've had some good moments from Inzina, had some good moments from Moffat, but White is seriously doing some work now against this AHQ squad. The other problem is, compositionally, I didn't notice this before and I really shouldn't have, but Crappy and Carriers both ran supports that didn't have a big support ultimate like Transcendence or Sound Barrier, so when Mega come through with both of theirs, you don't have enough to really take up the damage. But now, into Cap B.
That's a good opening pick to catch Rapid, but nice trade back. They're getting good work done though. Eric was a little bit too deep there, unfortunately for himself, and that's the thing, you've only got the Lucio there. It's much more dangerous to go deep as the Winston in that situation. So Mega now, payload underway, and ultimates coming on up.
We need some stabilization here from AHQ. It should be the Riptide play to follow things in. And for AHQ, need to be very aggressive to follow that Riptide through. Think of it like a Tracer, think of it like a Winston jumping in. You got to follow up on that damage.
Riptide out, Mega, they're just going to pull back, wait it out, wait till they can spot it, and then hopefully shoot it down, but good position. Going to get a Pudo with it. That's exactly what you're after, and because Mega weren't moving the payload in that time, this is now AHQ's opportunity to stabilize. Can they get aggressive now?
Incident in.
He is in with the Transcendence. They got the kill on Eric as well, so Pudo will just be able to rejoin this fight. Kara's going down before he can EMP, and Mega just have it back underway now. They do lose NZNR to the self-destruct from Hehe, but that self-destruct kind of feels like just a tool they're not going to be able to use later. Someone does need to be moving the payload though. Going to be able to get on it now, but AHQ do get a chance for a final contest.
And this is a good turnaround from Mega, who otherwise would have had to go for a full reset, wait for their returning members, but because they have double support ultimates, once again in a scenario where AHQ don't have any good support ultimates, EMP's not going to be the one to keep your team alive. EMP's great to engage with, same as the nano boost, it's just not going to be good defensively.
Very aggressive in the backline from Eric, but again, you've only got the one healer to try and keep you alive, so T1 able to close that out. Now it's going to have to be the EMP. They don't have the Riptide as well, and they're very vulnerable. Mega, this is their opportunity to commit.
The bad news is we're nearly into the overtime, so if anything has happened, AHQ have played a lot of time.
Crappy did get that nano boost off in the nick of time, but they can't get anything with it because all the ultimates just go wide. They get the one out of the Riptide. Actually, Eric at the last second able to get one good kill through could be the changer there. They need to still close out on Kera's actually.
Just
respawn. Yeah, it's a little bit closer for AHQ actually. So getting those last couple of kills, Dizzy finally pulling the weight as needed, and that was Mega's fight. They just committed at the wrong moment at the end there, walking into Junkrat damage when Dizzy was low and out of the fight.
You gotta be able to commend the tanks on the AHQ side for opening things up. It was Eric that ended up getting the kill into Apudo, and then allowing Dizzy to get the damage, and it was Mega who kind of forgot about Dizzy. It was partly that you can't go for Dizzy too hard. He's hiding in a bit of a hole. You want to chase him, you're gonna eat grenade damage, but if you don't chase him, you want to go for the cart instead, you're still eating grenade damage. Kind of a win-win scenario there for AHQ, but it can only apply right in those final moments. If anything, AHQ cut that one super tight.
There were ultimates in there for Mega as well that could have been committed at certain moments that honestly just weren't. They were very conservative on the sound barrier. They didn't use it to save T2. Turned out they didn't need to initially. They were able to get the kill on Eric instead, but you know, there was kind of this mind gaming thing where they were like, we don't want to commit it in case of the EMP, and then the EMP did come out with AHQ at a numbers disadvantage. The sound barrier was the exact tool you want to close out the fight at that position, but you can't use it because you're EMP'd, so it's like kind of the ultimate counter. You don't want to use it before, you can't use it immediately after, and AHQ, knowing that, converted on that one very narrow window.
And this is one of the scenarios for Mega where you do just have to bite the bullet and make the play, because the worst scenario than that is the fact that you don't make a play. Inaction is going to be worse than taking inaction and just facing the consequences of it in most certain scenarios. So now, for Mega, when you consider what lineup AHQ were running, which is a little bit weird, still not too much of a fan of it just yet. It's kind of not really synergistic in that it doesn't really have the synergy that you're looking for. But for Mega, the tools and the win conditions were quite clear. If you brute force your way through with a sound barrier and a transcendence, there is not enough damage from the AHQ side to stop you. They're only running one, they don't have enough damage output from Dizzy alone there. They don't have their own support ultimates defensively to sort of put their own HP bars up and trying to match that brute force power.
It feels like positionally they were playing around the Junkrat well until suddenly they weren't. That was when Dizzy was able to just get those few kills through with the help of that EMP. But this is an interesting team comp. Maybe triple tank now out of AHQ.
Well, it's old school AHQ, right?
Yeah, it's only 2 tanks now. And now it's only 1 tank. Keres does get a hook to look good, but he's not going to get much more out of that. May just lose his life if he's not careful. Take a breather is going to preserve it, but they're all in full retreat already. Losing Enz and Anar here, Mega are going to be able to get that respawn back. So that's the first hold of what will need to be many.
And speaking of brute force, this does feel like a brute force composition from AHQ as well. They don't have the healing to really sustain themselves, so all they can do is jump in very quickly, take as many fights as possible, and just use Crappy's amp it up healing to keep everyone alive, because aside from that, they're kind of in the dead water.
The one thing we did say once upon a time with Triple Tank and Sombra is once the EMP goes out, those tanks are really just big health bars. They lose all of that utility that you want out of them. You can't get those hooks. You can't block any damage with the D.Va. So if that is able to come out here from Mega, this could really be big. Keres is out of it though. They do convert the kill onto Crappy anyway. In fact, converting all these kills is just awkward. A classic right-hand hack onto Keres, and awkward indeed. By the time he was in the fight properly, the rest of his team was largely dead.
And Keres spent a lot of time trying to go around the backside, trying to flank, almost play like a tracer. Gets into the back of Mega, but all Mega got to do is turn around. There's a big hog behind you, and they just all focus him. The hack is out as well. There's no take a breather, and now Mega fully charged up on ultimates. Thank you, ult battery.
Yeah, they didn't really need to commit many either. Only really the EMP, and now Keres swapping as well. AHQ are really behind on the ult economy.
Severely. This is a very dire situation for AHQ now, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but maybe even a Junkrat would be helping.
Good pressure onto Eric. He is able to retreat this time and does have the 2 healers to help him out. Mega are at the point where they don't actually need to commit ultimates yet, and AHQ kind of do.
They can play a little bit slower now because they do have their second healer, and Keres has done a good job despite swapping quite early, or rather swapping quite late to have this ultimate charge built up. Now it's going to be the push on through from Mega though.
There's an EMP to come straight out though, and it gets good connection as they catch Hehe before he can self-destruct. Trade one back though, but Apudo getting work with the tactical visor, and Dizzy just not getting the same mileage. Does get Apudo on the back end, and Eric staying in the fight for long enough to convert that extra kill. T2 though has the damage to take out Dizzy, and Eric, Primal Rage and 2 healers gives him a lot of time, but it's not really time they can use, they can do much with, rather. That is going to be Mega holding for now. AHQ close to respawn. I mean, they can come in for a recontest, but there's still tools that Mega didn't have to commit the last fight that they can commit now.
It's absolutely crazy that Eric ends up being the rock of this team, the one that really holds everyone together, because he's still doing well despite AHQ losing fights.
And that's going to be those extra ultimates that Mega had in the back pocket. Keris gets a Transcendence off, but Mega still have the position, and they're getting all the damage through. Honestly, with only the one heal and the Transcendence now run out, plus all that health pack control on the side of Mega, AHQ are just too low to stay in the fight any longer. Now they're only going to get a chance for one more fight.
It's going to be an overtime push here. The best that they can really hope for is for Crappy to get the sound barrier up, and if he can get that before Inside can get a Transcendence, this is going to be the opening. Shouldn't be hoping for too many ultimates from Mega just yet, especially if White goes down here. The EMP could be critical as well.
But he's able to pull back, and because of that gets a huge heal off, gets very close to the EMP. Plus they'll have the Transcendence of Pudo though, pressured out, stays alive. This is going to be what it comes down to. AHQ need to keep his members alive. Big EMP, no conversion just yet. This time AHQ have kind of sounded it out, but there's the damage through.
Nice sound barrier.
That is a nice sound barrier, but that's a good tactical visor in equal measure. Similar from Dizzy, rather, the tactical visor out, and it's just 1 for 1 for now, but Dizzy needing to get a lot of work done. T1 getting a little bit too low, can't quite pull back, and they've only got the one support in the mix now as well. It's all going to come down to that, and losing a Pudo could be the swing. Now AHQ kind of have the upper hand in the fight, and Dizzy can't really be contested. White though is about to get another EMP.
Dizzy's doing it.
He is doing it. White second EMP, but he's the only one who can convert off it as Graceful loses his mech as well. That's going to be AHQ finally getting this fight over the line, just barely closing out on Graceful at the end there. Now they actually get the payload underway with some ultimate charge in the back pocket.
And I'm glad AHQ bring with them to the stadium a lot of sweat towels, because they're certainly going to need them right now. That was a tough fight for them to win. Dizzy pulls it through in the last minute. You had this EMP play come out of White, but it doesn't do anything if there's not enough team members there. White now changing back onto the Tracer. This is now the Mega squad that does look a little bit deadly. How much work can they get done now, facing up against AHQ in an exact compositional mirror?
And AHQ have a couple of ultimates up on them. Ooh, T1 going down. Eric now, with those two supports, is just having a much better time on these dives. Finally looking a bit more like his old self. Mega, they need to bleed time off the clock and get a good hold. They're really letting this payload go a long way.
Especially because AHQ come in with a lot of momentum here. Mind you that Mega spent a decent amount of ults to try and hold on to A, especially with White changing over to a new hero as well. He's still behind the 8 ball when it comes to ultimate charge, and already this cart making its way a lot of progress in one push.
You got to question when Mega are going to make the commit here, because Dizzy's got this high ground. It's going to be hard no matter how you slice it. They do displace him with a good placement of the self-destruct, but that's just one less tool they got. Now tactical visor out as Elk has to commit the sound barrier, which Crappy can match. Mega now, they still need to get a leg up. Apudo, his own tactical visor out, and again, they're having to match ultimates. This time it's the Transcendence, but it's Mega slowly getting beaten back a little bit lower. Apudo's positioning is decent here, but Dizzy's is slightly better, and it reflects in the D-Mech on Graceful. Here he gets NZNR with the self-destruct as well, and Mega now, they don't have to stay in this, and yeah, White is in trouble, in too deep. Eric does go down, but Apudo can't really do enough, and T1 doesn't have the healers to stay in this one. Now it's only Graceful, and the healers just barely rejoining the fight, and they just waited too long. They didn't draw those ultimates out of AHQ early, and that means AHQ have them when it counts. They only needed to win one fight, and they've just won it.
And the snowball continues rolling down the AHQ mountain for Mega. This is their final opportunity. Where are the Mega members? They need to come on right now, because the card is about to go over.
Keris stays alive. Dizzy's able to commit a tactical visor. At least T1's able to stall Dizzy. Not sure what he was looking for there, but he certainly didn't find it. Maybe White, there we go, around on the backside. That's good positioning. Mega have a chance to do this, but not if they lose T1 like that. Apudo needs to get a lot of work done, but they're not, and Rapid's able to deal with White. Now Dizzy can rejoin the fight for them. Mega, they're just getting picked apart on the point where it counts. Transcendence in, but it's just too late as AHQ still converting out these kills, and Mega signing their own death warrant there with how they let the point A cap go through, committing ultimate after ultimate, and AHQ took that inch and gained a mile.
Oh, but man, how hard was that for AHQ, all things considered. Right at the end there, they only kept A into the overtime One good push from them, though, onto B was all they needed. That good momentum play all the way from B, all the way to capping it out towards the end. Mega, they had some opportunities there. T1 dying straight after the B gates open. That's probably one of the deaths that really cost them, because Mega really needed one big, quick, early fight as soon as B started to really get the ball rolling on their own ultimate charge again, because they were behind, and also to set the pressure on the cart straight away. But because they lost too many deaths early, they didn't get that fight until the cart was nearly all the way through.
And that's the thing, right? They took a really late fight on A towards the very end, so all their deaths were very late. Then T1 died, but from that point on, they just took way too long to engage as well. You know, all that good defense they did on point A doesn't count for much if you get nothing on B, and off the back of that, AHQ going to be able to even up the series. Now, you feel like that was actually within striking distance for Mega. Indeed, after nearly fully holding A, it was their game to lose, but it is one they lost, and you've got to throw that that thing into question of, you know, getting it done when it counts.
Let's take a look at the replays now, and let's see what the teams can get done in the final moments here. 1 minute remaining for the push from the Mega side, and this should be the one where they get it on through.
And it was a hard ask for them. Crappy didn't quite get the nano boost off before dying, and they just have the pressure out here on the hole. The self-destruct from Hehe isn't quite well enough placed. He's able to get picked off as well, and all the other members were already very, very low, so they couldn't really affect the fight and do anything with what little ground the self-destruct had created. Keras as well, knowing better than to commit into this one. They go for a last-minute contest, which wasn't wrong. They had the EMP, they had a couple of tools, but ultimately they came in a little bit staggered because the D.Va did go on first, got demegged, then the EMP came through, and unfortunately AHQ weren't in the position to actually capitalize on that.
One of the big issues for Mega in that opening push was they ran McCree for a while, and they want to play a little bit slow with this McCree, wait for the picks to come on through, try and bait carries, but they never really found him. In fact, carries killed Inzana on an occasion or two, and still didn't really have the opportunity to stop. Let's take a look at the next replay now, and this is going to be the attack from AHQ instead.
And if you want to talk about strange things being run, Keras had to swap onto the Zenyatta here because he had been on the Roadhog for so long to no effect. So they're able to get more mileage out of Eric now that he's on the Zenyatta, but you look at the ultimates, they were just behind. Every single fight went from here, with the exclusion of the very last one, was Mega favored from the start, and all resulted in Mega victories as well.
Yep, and so eventually Dizzy is the one that really swings the tide over for the AHQ side, because it was fairly even. Both sides had a lot of ultimates to play in here. And it's going to be both the supports on both sides to open things out. Now watch Dizzy as he stays alive. White goes down after the EMP. A lot of kills coming out from the Mega side. This is when you think Mega have got this, Mega have continued this, but Eric and Dizzy as a duo here, they are the ones doing a lot of damage. Dizzy should finally go down to T1, but it's just a little bit too late because Eric picked up both the supports.
And what does ultimately happen off this is AHQ get themselves a third, and then they end up having to pull back, unfortunately. Getting the third ended up being a bit of a saving grace for them, because it did end up meaning that that fight, the sort of second fight on A, when they were about to cap, came through quite late for Mega. They didn't have the ideal timing on the respawns. Had that extra third had to be capped by AHQ, then maybe it would have been doable for Mega in that situation. So, generally speaking, Mega did just feel ahead, but what little bits of advantage AHQ did get, they got a lot out of.
Well, AHQ got a full team wipe there, so I think everything at the end of the day, the fact that Dizzy was able to stay alive for so long, uncontested on the high ground, the biopack keeping himself stocked up there, and also with Eric once again getting so much damage done as a Winston on the back line, that's what really gave AHQ the power. But now it is 1-1. 2 maps are done in the series. Potentially 3 more remain. At least 2 more to go. See who comes out on top all after this break. Thank you for sticking through that break with us as we're about to now head into map number 3 of the series. Mega taking on AHQ so far, 1-1 apiece.
And it's actually looking a little bit like a repeat of the first time these two teams met. Where again, it was the win initially for Mega that AHQ tied it up on Hybrid, which last time they met was Nambani. And it was a match where actually that second map was within striking distance from Mega. We just had that on Hollywood, nearly full held on A, and had the opportunity to do so on B. And there was kind of their own undoing there at the end with how they kind of played out the B defense. There was a crucial pick that AHQ did get on T-Watt that certainly affected it. But really, Mega didn't do themselves any favors either. That being said, because of the home side pick, which they didn't have last time, they get to take it to Volskaya Industries, an assault map they are very comfortable on. AHQ do like this assault map as well, but you've got to feel that this is a place now where Mega can push it to match point.
And it will be interesting to see exactly what Mega does here. Typically, you would be able to expect them to run Alcon to the Soldier, play the triple DPS, and they can still play triple DPS, but exactly who is going to be playing what. And that makes it difficult for a team like AHQ to really be able to predict exactly what they can expect, because for Mega, right now, anything can happen, and their whole team feels a little bit up in the air.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Even now, just tonight, you're seeing a combination that actually Mega haven't pulled out before, at least in terms of who is playing what. They've got Graceful off the Zenyatta onto the D.Va. They've got White sticking in that DPS role. They've got NZNR onto the Zenyatta. It's a change up. And that's from yesterday, which was already a change up in itself with the triple DPS that Mega were running against Blank. So, I mean, whatever research AHQ did in terms of compositions and who's playing what, kind of goes out the window here.
And tomorrow, Apudo plays Lucio, so who knows? At the end of the day, Mega, they're a bag of tricks at this point, and AHQ just got to be able to hold on, but AHQ are not quite safe themselves. So far, the way I describe AHQ is they look Junkertown ready, because they're playing Junkrats, they're playing Roadhogs. I don't know what's going on with this team anymore. It's kind of strange. And they have somewhat made it work. They made Hollywood A defense work long enough with the Junkrat. A attack was a little bit weird. It didn't really have that effect with carries onto the Hogs. So now for AHQ, it may just be better to play something a little bit more traditional, like the Soldier Tracer that we know them to be good at.
And that's interesting, actually. You touch on something interesting in that, in a similar vein, we kind of have no idea what AHQ are going to run either right now. It does feel like they're generally sticking to their normal beats, and it's kind of to be expected, but yeah, they've got some weird ones into the mix. Look, they have also played the Junkrat prior to today to great effect. Just seems that today is not really having that same major effect.
Well, it just feels like they're more trying to force it to work rather than saying, okay, this is actually very good for us. It's more like, we're playing Nepal Shrine. Junkrat is not known to work here. We're going to force this composition to work, and of course, it blows up in their face, unfortunately. It's ironic because it's Junkrat.
Yeah, that got patched out a while ago. But that is going to be on the defense Mega first, and they are running the Sombra, and it's not going to be a put on the Sombra. In fact, it's going to be White, and NZNR is back onto the Tracer.
Yep, so when you do have this triple DPS, I guess what the really good thing to consider here is with NZNR still being on the support role for this team, he can easily flex back onto a DPS role at any sort of point. So for Mega, a lot of options they can consider.
AHQ kind of have to get a quick read on this and figure out how they're going to deal with it. They don't really have too much time to waste here. As soon as the EMP is up, it's going to become a huge factor, and I do expect White to get it very soon now. Oh, that's a pick.
Yeah, Puda going down quite early. What Mega do have to work here with is an EMP, and they would be smart to commit this soon, because if they're not going to commit it, they have to save it for B entirely.
Kind of, I mean, they have to, but they also kind of couldn't afford to, because who's going to follow up on it, right? T-Watt was actually just about dead, was going to guaranteed die before that went off. Your other two DPSs were already dead. Who was going to convert all those kills in a 4 versus 6 situation?
That's why,
surprisingly, AHQ push it through and get the cap.
And that's why it feels like a do or die situation that you're going to make it the all-in-play here and try and save A, or you're not. Unfortunately, they make the play a little bit too late, and now they don't have the EMP for B either, so it's just a little bit of a mistiming from Mega. And now AHQ once again threatening to snowball their way through onto B in a similar fashion as they did on Hollywood.
Sometimes you just got to kind of take that one on the chin and go, you know what, we've lost this fight. Early pick onto Apudo means that, again, Mega may just be in the position to lose this fight. Self-destruct out buys them a good amount of space, but no picks offered, and Graceful will not remech. Now these members, Enzen and T1, stuck on the wrong side of this. They get the kills on the supports, though, so AHQ do just have to back off, play a little bit more carefully without those ones in the mix. Mega, the damage can start to overwhelm them if they're not careful, but they're still getting kills through. Eric can preserve his life with that Primal Rage. The rest of these members are staying alive as well. They do finally close out on Rapid and are going to force Busy back. It looks like AHQ won't get more than that initial third, but happy to get that initial third.
And that was important for Mega to win as well, not just because they're trying to stop the snowball, but actually killing both the supports on AHQ first really is what takes the legs out straight from Mega. They can't run after that. The fact that they stayed in as long as they did was a pretty big boon for them. And then getting Elk's sound barrier on top of that, well, that's just a bonus prize cherry on top of AHQ. Gotta feel pretty good.
They've got some good ultimates to convert off now as well, the Transcendence crucially, but here's going to be the EMP economy available and gets it really nicely onto the backline. Apudo, though, can't quite get aggressive with this Dragon Blade as he would like. They do get carries at least, and now Dizzy too, so AHQ are going to just have to take that one on the chin, but my goodness, they've snuck out a third in among that. A third extra. They already had the initial third, but on the whole, that's a pretty good saving grace for AHQ, given that that was a fight lost for them.
Wow, I mean, AHQ are getting something done on every single push. Even when they don't look like they're really winning this, they're getting something under the bag. And for Mega, they're just not really having the full scope of this defense mapped out. They've got some parts quite successful, landing a good EMP, but Apudo failing to really get any damage done there, getting himself killed with the Dragon, without using the Dragon Blade rather, and then AHQ still managing to get themselves a third. So far, 2 out of 2 pushes.
Yeah, happy enough with that. Here's the next EMP though, and it's instant conversion. AHQ don't think they're quite going to be able to sneak out a full cap here. Mega have kind of caught onto that one, and off the back
they tried.
2 kills. Yeah, they tried, but that's the thing. Mega, like they said, they figured it out. They're not going to let that happen.
AHQ actually managed to get themselves up to 77.8 despite the fact, so all things considered, that's still not too bad, and AHQ's progress is good enough now that within 4 minutes and 11 seconds, you would expect that last third to come out through within the next 2 minutes, even possibly within the next push, because they do have double support ultimates, which is most important.
They need to be able to get something done with them, though. White's actually been really great at charging up this EMP quickly, and I do expect him to have it at least in time to affect this next fight.
Right, also, Apudo needs to get some work done with Dragon Blade, and here he comes.
Yeah, it forces out a Transcendence, but that's not going to do enough to save the team. He does lose his life, but they've already kind of taken the legs out from under AHQ once again, and they're still not quite going to get that final third.
And this is good for Mega because this now gives opportunity for White to charge up his next EMP. They're able to rotate these ultimates quite effectively, and meanwhile, eventually Elk gets that sound barrier as well. So they have a lot of stall options here. They haven't engaged in the EMP. Stall with Tito's Primal Rage. Apudo killing Rapid as well. Slows down AHQ just a little bit more and carries back on the hog.
That's the thing, given the relative speed of Cap A, Mega, they really do just need to stall here, play for time, and then find a point to dig in their feet and go.
You gotta think this is meant to be their big push now because they have 5 ultimates ready in hand. Kerry's already used the Transcendence, so going into the hog doesn't really lose you that much more, but now Mega have that EMP prepped up and ready to go.
The one thing that does lose them is the extra healer. They rely on the self-heal of these members, but self-heal doesn't matter when you get insta-killed by a Pulse Bomb, and now that's the only healer that would have been available. Rest of the team gonna take a dive off the edge. They know that they cannot win that fight.
That's a nice gong sound that Mega will be quite pleased about. So that at least in terms of rotation now, the biggest problem for Mega is actually they haven't taken enough damage for Elf to build up their own sound barrier. So they're not going to have the big defensive tools yet. Apudo not quite on the Dragon Blade, so they're lacking offensive tools too. The only thing they can really rely on is some stall options. Self-destruct to really slow HQ down, and then Tito up Primal Rage as well to buy respawn time.
This is the one that they needed with the sound barrier to get them onto that point. They need to convert the kills. There's the tactical visor. Oh, but goes down to NZNR. And the 1 kill onto Apudo isn't really enough for AHQ to stay in this fight because, again, with only that 1 healer, they're having a hard time chopping off these tanks, and Eric commits the Primal Rage to preserve his life, but they lose his mech anyway. They're just not getting the kills. White, ooh, does go down. That's crucial. Takes the EMP off the table, but Mega still have these ultimates they can commit here. They do commit 2 in the form of the Pulse Bomb and the Dragon Blade, and it is enough, it seems, to stabilize the fight.
Yeah, just enough where Elf doesn't use the sound barrier either, but they do have to be a little bit careful. AHQ are not quite out of it just yet. They've reinforced it.
That's
Here
a
comes
good
the whole hog.
shot. Yeah, big one onto NZNR. And that actually means that no one could quite follow up on the EMP. AHQ, they've sort of regrouped here, but they still don't have all their members just yet. Nearly got the camp through there just for that moment while Mega were respawning. And now actually, if they can get these kills as the respawners come in, they can close it out. Mega were just a bit too far back with the few members that were alive, not willing to contest the members of AHQ. And now AHQ getting the kills, just barely giving themselves the opportunity to win and then capitalizing on it beautifully.
There's a respectable push from AHQ, and they made that hog composition work as soon as Keres actually managed to get the whole hog out. Getting that kill into NZNR was pretty big, but when you look at the Mega side, they didn't respect AHQ's ability to come back in. They didn't fully repel AHQ either. They kind of just stopped the fight, turned it into a bit of a no man's land scenario. No one really walked in until AHQ. They got a couple respawners and they said, now's our time. And Mega were not reinforced just yet. They weren't set up for their next defense, and unfortunately, they lose because of that.
And had they been able to get that EMP off earlier, they could have got that route that they were after, but White unfortunately dying to the Lucio headshot of all things. It's like the world's slowest moving shot. It was point blank though, so you gotta forgive the guy.
Does it move faster than a rocket? I don't know. About the same maybe.
It's
a lot less deadly, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, unfortunately. I can never get that image out of my head in that raunchy animation of the Lucio firing off the shots, and they really do.
The thing is, if that's slow, then what is the Symmetra alt fire then? That's got to be...
Yeah, that is really slow.
That just never hits you then.
The Symmetra alt fire is just ball lightning. Like that seems to be all it is.
You wish it moved at the speed of light as well. That would help.
That would be really useful, especially given that like the main fire is like it just instantly connects on you. Like there's no travel time. Its travel time is now.
All right, so moving back in action for AHQ with 1 minute, I believe it was 1:13 or something around that mark. You really did expect them to get that push on through by 2 minutes, because at the 4 minute mark, they already had 2 of the thirds camped out of 3. So to spend 3 minutes then to get that last third did take them more time than expected. So at the end of the day, it was a good holdout from Mega, but they got to count it. They got to make it count now on their own offense.
They need to make it a quick one, to be honest. They need to really get good time going into this time bank and then rely on getting maybe a first point hold. White, though, pressured out, doesn't quite get the connect on that flashbang, but they got the pressure on the rest of these members here. Dizzy low, hasn't quite got topped off, is finally able to pull back.
Seeing a Poodle on the Tracer as well is a bit of a rare sight for the team, but for Mega, well, everyone's having a go at Tracer at some point in this composition. We are needing to see a little bit of action here, though. You are wanting to catch out Keres with the flashbang, and so far, Keres has been slippery.
Yeah, and they haven't quite got that damage onto Dizzy either, nor have they sounded out the turret. They finally get the spot on it. They need to find a way to take it out, but that's the shots they've been after, getting crappy out. EMP can come in, and indeed it does, but they've got kills anyway and instantly catch Keres. They do lose White in the mix, but they've got the members still alive here to push this one through. Unfortunately, losing T2 is just a little bit rough off the back end. Rapid actually keeping the team in this one pretty handily, and Aputo kind of struggling to get the same amount of mileage. AHQ, with the few members that are still here, are getting so much done.
And actually, multiple cores available as well, so Rapid, he did a great job of stalling up the cap. Didn't even give away 1/3 over to Mega, who really had to work quite hard to get that progress anyway. But now AHQ, they look even more set up than before because they have so many more options to consider.
That's a good land on the pulse bomb. Takes that molten core off the table for a moment, and they have to commit that moment. So they do. Not quite getting anything with that Deadeye, but rapid double on the pulse bomb. And again, it was the lack of healers that lost them the last fight. It's going to be the same thing twice now for Mega as they get repelled in much more convincing fashion.
Yeah, a lot of ultimates though off the board for AHQ. They had to spend a little bit more extra to get that win, but for Mega now starting to run out of time with only 2 minutes and 8 seconds remaining. Double support ultimate means once again they can try and brute force their way through with a lot of healing, a lot of sustain, but that might just get cancelled if Keres comes in with a well-timed EMP.
And he will have that EMP available. Nice placement now on the turret. Most likely take Mega a little bit by surprise, and Mega actually really
Keres low.
Yeah, Keres low indeed. They're struggling to kind of break into this one. That's the Transcendence out from Incident now so that they can try and break in, but AHQ have all these ultimates. You've got to believe that they can get something done with them, right? And that's the EMP as they instantly convert. Doesn't matter that you've got the turret with the self-destruct. You need to get a lot more than just that. Eric's going to be able to primal rage here, and the DPS is looking very lean on the side of Mega. Again, they only have the one healer now. NZNR only just respawned. respawned and is trying to rejoin the fight. And T1 and Apudo just aren't quite getting the damage on all of these members, not with that health pack control. And yeah, exactly, nearly molten core, which kind of turns Dizzy into a third tank in his own right. And again, Mega are just going to ultimately get repelled for a moment.
Well, he turns into a tank, and so does his turret, and that's kind of the scary thing here. Incident now trying to keep a little bit of pressure on that turret. May just turn things around. Kerry's already EMP. This might be it.
Instant on the molten core. Doesn't actually have the turret up, but it doesn't matter. He's got damage and tank stats, and they wanted to convert on the EMP. That's what they really needed out of that.
And by the way, how strange is it to see Dizzy on the Torbjorn rather than Crappy? So really valuing here the extra support play from AHQ, and Dizzy, well, turning this into a DPS, and why not?
That's the thing, yeah. They've subbed off one of the supports. That's the thing. They have actually tried to run comps that have essentially no supports, and they've struggled a little bit. So learning from past mistakes, I suppose.
Well, they will learn here, though, because Rapid might just get a lot done. It saves enough blinks to get out, so that's quite important. This may be the turning point, because Mega can come in while AHQ are down.
Looks like you spoke too soon, my friend. That's going to be the Deadeye out. He nearly got out alive. The Deadeye doesn't quite get anything. Eric able to Primal Rage as well, but here's that EMP still available. And if they can catch Elk and NZNR, it's going to be huge. And indeed they do. Apudo goes down, as does T1, and they can't save them with these ultimates from the supports. NZNR, it's just a little too late to save those members, but he has to do it just so that they can buy time on the point. White is at least still in this trying to get work done, but so is Rapid, and ultimately it's Rapid and Kira's doing more work than White, Apudo, and NZNR combined, unfortunately, for the side of Mega. And this is looking like it'll be the final repulsion as AHQ still holding on to this one. Apudo is going to fight to the last, but he's got to do it against Rapid and all these respawning members now of AHQ. Even the turret getting a few in that. And that is a pretty resounding way to win it for AHQ.
And this is where the potential inexperience on roles of certain Mega players may be starting to rear its ugly head around. Everybody is a good enough player on the Mega side, but when you consider roles, White is on the McCree, which Apudo is usually on. Apudo is on the Tracer that White would be typically on in this new kind of Mega lineup. Still have Enzina onto a support role that he may not be really used to, and you're just not seeing this real mastery, this real proficiency out of these hero picks that you kind of expect. They're doing a good enough job, but unfortunately not enough to actually get a win.
This is now a really troublesome spot just on the whole for Mega. I mean, you've got to feel that they could have won Hollywood still, and had they been in that position, this would have been match point, would have been unfortunate to lose it, but it wouldn't have been the end of the world. On the other hand now, twice, they've kind of given up an opportunity to close out games. You know, if you're close but not quite making it happen, it's just not good enough, and now AHQ having it at match point 2-1. Take a look at some replays from Volskaya.
This one's going to be taking place 3 minutes and 30 in for the attack from AHQ, and AHQ did struggle somewhat here. Some good rotations early on from White, who's going to get a quick EMP here. Does put a spanner in the works, but killing Apudo does make things a little bit easier for this team, but do expect the EMP play to be what actually counts.
And the unfortunate thing for Mega here was by the time the EMP came through, the other two DPSs that could have converted off it were dead. AHQ killed T1 just seconds before the EMP came out as well. And it was just unfortunate that White also died after the EMP, like he couldn't even convert off it himself. And on the whole, it was just AHQ happened to get the right picks in the right order. Actually, happened is the wrong word. It was good target priority, and they just barely got the setup in time for it. But it was really down to the wire there. Had that EMP actually come out a little bit earlier, or indeed had either Apudo or NZNR survived, they maybe could have actually closed it out, and it would have been a hole.
And that's why you got to go back to some of the decision making here, because two things kind of need to be decided upon. You're either going to you commit to this big EMP play, which, as you sort of said, could have really worked out for this team. It was a good EMP, all things considered. It had good coverage. You caught enough AHQ players, but you needed to have a little bit more follow-up, and unfortunately, it didn't come out in a timely enough manner that the players were able to do that. Or secondly, you have to admit, we're going to give away this fight. We're going to take the EMP back to B.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It ended up just being far too late a commit. I mean, look, even if T1 had have survived, you're basically going, okay, with no supports, our one DPS and tank here are going to be able to win this fight. And that's a really tough ask, because actually, again, you've got to go back to this thing that AHQ were actually set up where they wanted to be. They had the soldier on the high ground. They had the tanks to protect it. Tito the only one that can actually dive up there. As White with the Sombra, you don't really want to go up there if you can help it, because you want a translocator set back up by a health pack for safety. You don't want to translocate up and just end up dying, which is in the end what happened there. This now was onto point B. This is where AHQ finally closed it out.
This is a difficult fight for AHQ because they came in with so many ultimates here. Puto dying to the self-destruct, but it's not quite enough to stop, to really get the extra caps in here. They don't cap it out in this one because they're waiting for the whole hog from carries before they actually get the damage. And for the amount of ultimates that AHQ actually commit here, which is all 5 that they did have, it's not quite enough. It's only towards the end, and this is the critical moment here. Elk has to decide, is he going to commit the sound barrier or not? And in some ways, you may be, if you've got hindsight here, decide that it would have been a good move to make AHQ look like they were backing off. Now they come back in. This is where the whole hog really does come in and get the kill onto Incident, and things turn around very quickly.
And the whole hog as well just displaced the members that were going to follow up on that EMP. So again, you've got to touch on what you said there. Imagine the alternate universe where Elka committed the sound barrier earlier, and then the EMP had been able to come in as soon as White respawns. Suddenly, Carriers can't do anything. He can't do enough with that whole hog. The rest of the team gets picked off, but because they didn't maybe commit ultimates when they should have, they felt that they kind of already won the fight, didn't actually respect that AHQ was still looking to get aggressive, had some ultimates coming up. They ended up kind of costing themselves. It's like they didn't actually recognize just how low their tanks were, and therefore how little tanking they were going to be able to do.
Right, and now into the A defense here for AHQ, and this was a little bit too tough for Mega to break on through. Had some good ideas here. Open up with the Transcendence play, get some really good damage in, try and displace the turret if you can, but the self-destruct onto Graceful, cleaning up Incident as well. They do get a return trade onto a turret, but it just gets rebuilt.
And that's the thing, sure they get rapid, but White instantly dies anyway. Keras by this point has already done what work he needs. And they've got some crucial ultimates still here anyway. Mega were actually split up, right? Those kills that they got were consolation prizes. They'd already lost members, and because of where they were positioned, the respawners that came in couldn't actually rejoin the fight safely. Now they end up in the situation where they instantly go for another round where there were actually still ultimates up for AHQ. And I feel like there was just a bit of a misread where maybe they felt AHQ had committed everything they had. But if they'd been paying attention, they would have seen no molten core, no sound barrier. There's always an EMP can come up in the middle of a fight. There is pretty much no time an EMP won't be available after that economy is up and running. It just felt like a little bit too early a move from Mega with no picks to aid it.
At the same time, I think you have to be able to come back in and get those extra ultimates out. So the Molten Core was used in that next ensuing fight. With only about 1 minute 15, kind of 20ish remaining, you have two choices there. Do you go for one quick fight, lose, come back for a second fight, or do you just commit and that is your last fight? Because if it's your last fight, actually then you're just playing into the EMP and playing to the Molten Core and you kind of lose. So it was a little bit 50-50 on Mega, a little bit of a lose-lose situation as well. And at the end of the day, AHQ just set themselves up nicely to clean it up.
Exactly, and that's kind of been the theme of this series as a whole, where AHQ have won it. They've given themselves an opportunity to win it, and then they've taken that opportunity and run with it. And that's the thing as well. They've been the ones making the opportunity. Look, there have been times where Mega maybe haven't capitalized on things they should have, maybe haven't been as proactive as they could have been, but you got to compliment AHQ's ability to always give themselves windows, which they then take full advantage of. They will always find a way to make it possible, no matter how far behind they may or may not be. And with that now, at match point, they get to take it to their map pick, which will be Dorado.
This is now starting to look like an AHQ that is getting better and better throughout the series. And Mega, the weaknesses are starting to show up more and more. Mega looked great on Nepal. AHQ had a lot of issues there. AHQ took Hollywood rather close. Could have probably have gone either way still. But then you go to Volskaya and suddenly AHQ looked far more dominant. And Mega kind of question marks floating over the top of their heads.
And again, you're in this situation where had you actually closed it out on Hollywood, and I mean, without wanting to say it in like the harsh kind of way, this is only going to end up sounding harsh. Mega should have won Hollywood, right? Them not winning Hollywood was their own mistake. It was their own fault. It should not have happened. And had it happened, had they been able to close it out, this still would have been their match point. And that's actually quite a comfortable situation. This is now the exact opposite. And they aren't a strong escort team. You have to be honest when you say that, especially on Dorado, especially against AHQ.
Our final chance now as well, we have to sort of see a Mega squad that they're quite comfortable running, because they've now come into the second round robin with the player lineup that they're quite happy with, but it now feels like midway through, in fact on the later end of the second round robin. So we're trying to figure out compositionally what is good for this team. And this has to come back to now, is it a little bit too late to start doing this? Is it too little too late? Because it just doesn't feel like you get the mastery or the proficiency of some of the players that normally would have on their preferred roles, such as putting White onto the Tracer instead of onto the McCree and Apudo, not on the Tracer, onto something that he's more comfortable picking normally.
The thing you do have to consider is this could actually be Mega just kind of playing the long game, going, okay, we need to win some crucial matches to avoid relegations, but this may not be that crucial match. This is an AHQ favored match, so maybe they're wanting to try something out here where honestly it might not have too much of an impact, and then play their greatest hits, you know, play what they know is going to work best when they do come up to the really must-win games. But that's a risky way to play. I mean, well, you've technically got the space to do that in this match, but you could also just win this match, and it has been winnable at various junctures.
We'll see, because Elk, for his birthday wish, says he wants a 3-0 Flash Wolves, and if they have something in the bag for that, if this is just a precursor to a potential win against Flash Wolves, then maybe it will be worth it. It's only time will tell.
Another year older, another year wiser, but still not quite winning against AHQ, unfortunately, for Elk. It was, of course, his birthday yesterday. He had a cake. It looked tasty. I hope it was tasty, Elk.
Yeah, and Pure ate a little bit of it off his arm as well, so it's good to get that sort of coach player.
Yeah, well, I mean, you may just need comfort food after this game, depending on how it goes. So on the defense now, on the defense now, AHQ, Mega looking to push it through the archway. And we've got now Rapid onto the Junkrat's. They're still running it, but it's not Dizzy this time.
Oh, let's see what Rapid can get done here, because every time we thought, okay, Dizzy's not bad at this hero. Dizzy plays a good Doomfist. Okay, Rapid plays a good Doomfist, so maybe now Rapid gets the work done.
And it's a pretty nice headshot onto TD1, plus they're getting the pressure out onto Apudo and the rest. This is going to be an initial holdout at AHQ. Not much payload distance yet for Mega, but had they won that fight, they actually would have been able to get the cap straight away.
It's actually a very respectable distance when you consider one good push should be able to tide it over. Where it would be quite poor distance would probably be around the archway, because that actually gives AHQ a lot of pressure with the Junkrat. That's where the Junkrat preferably wants to run his damage down with that payload in the archway, forcing Mega to play in tight chokes. But now Mega have a lot of options around which way they actually want to approach this. Already looking at that high wall, which is a flank option that is available.
Crappy actually spotted it out, though, of all things. So they're going to have to go.
They're going for this. They want this.
They're doing it again. They've got the few members here that can, but this is going to be very tight execution, because the moment these guys are over, they have to commit the pincer straight away, or they're just going to get split up and picked apart. And already T1 low, as is Apudo, and it's going to be the split up and pick apart option with the nano boost on Eric. Now it's all just going to be closed out here as they demech Graceful almost certainly. Looks like he actually may pull out, but they do still lose time on that failed push, Mega.
And it looks like a good push on paper. In theory, it should work quite well, but in reality, AHQ, they managed to find the pickouts because you've split the Mega side half and half. Mega are spread very thin there, and Apudo, unfortunately, he got caught out by Eric, who is a really good player at being able to find these DPSs.
Transcendence in, though, for NZNR, and that's the instant conversion on the two key ultimates AHQ did have available. That's a 3K for Apudo, much needed, getting it when it counts, and that is the cap as well.
Oh, fairly clean when it counts at the end of the day, now with 4 minutes remaining to get through onto B. Couple of ultimates in the bank, but otherwise they spent a lot to get that done. Now for AHQ, you got to think this is when you want to be able to stabilize. This is where your ultimate advantage starts to really count. A good rip time from Rapid will set the pacing of it.
And they've got some good forward defense here, Mega. That sounds really strange given that they're the attacking side, but this Riptide could kind of throw a spanner in that works. He's can't quite get it past the lip of that Eve, and he's going to get it far enough back to catch NZNR just barely, which is going to be very, very important. Now, AHQ can kind of occupy the space that Mega were trying to deny from them.
This is good positioning now, especially for a guy like Dizzy, and you got to think, where does Rapid go here? When you get to the B points of a lot of these maps, especially the hybrid escort ones, they're always quite, with the exception of King's Row, a very open space. So for Rapid, can't get too much work done on the Junkrat. He recognizes it, goes back now into the Tracer.
Yeah, I think a very smart call by him. Knows that that is that open space. He is very vulnerable, especially to the likes of Apudo. So, let's see what he does on the Tracer.
It's going to put you the push out now through from Mega with 2 minutes 47 remaining. Just kind of feeling this place out.
Oh, Apudo
feels a rocket to the face.
Yes, dives straight into that one. That's really unfortunate because White was set up to capitalize. Is going to lose his life as well while the divers of AHQ are dealing with the backline. Tita doesn't look like he'll get out with his life, and that's about as bad as it can possibly go for Mega.
Well, it's a little bit worse when you consider that Apudo died in a manner where the entire ultimate finished.
It's not just bad, it's worse.
Well, the thing is Apudo died very quickly, but he didn't die so quickly that he retained the Dragon Blade. He loses the entire ultimate, and now Mega are in a worse spot. But they do have a couple support ultimates ready to go very soon. They may be able to utilize that.
Yeah, they're going to need to get a lot of mileage out of them because they just need to get kills on the frag front out of White and Apudo. But with White going down, they've committed the self-destruct as well, but Apudo getting pressured out means they can't even capitalize off that. They need to hold on. Oh, going to commit the Transcendence as well. They do get the pick on Eric, but they need to get a lot more than just that. As the Nano Boost plus Tactical Visor on top of Dizzy, and unless they commit the sound barrier, my goodness, which they can't, by the way, because Elk is dead, they're not going to last out that fight. AHQ kind of in control of that from start to finish, and Mega, I feel like they kind of panicked on some of those commits.
ASU are not losing any control just yet because they only spent the 2 ultimates they really needed. Might have been a third one there from Rapid, hard to tell. If it was, he's recharged it very quickly, and still ASU have further options to engage with for this next defensive. For Mega, already dropped 1 Transcendence. That's half of that support ultimate force that they really wanted to use for this next push.
Ooh, nearly getting the catch on Dizzy, but without getting that, Apudo now pressured out and goes down once again. Was looking for a pick so he could open up with the Dragon Blade, but maybe a little too risky. Only a minute left for Mega.
And we are looking for a push where both White and Apudo can stay alive at the start of it, because so far, at every juncture, either one of those players has gone down rather early. So Mega need to be able to time these properly where they can get a lot of pressure, and White's actually looking for a good angle for a Deadeye.
Apudo's dead. They're going to have to commit though anyway. They've just got so little time. That's a good sleep on White. They do get a kill on Crappy, but White's not going to last long. Oh, he dies anyway to the Helix rocket.
That's kill steal.
Yeah, it's full on kill steal. And well, I mean, they can just kind of swap kills about instead. Like Carries is going to get one. Let's just like each get a kill actually. Rapid's got one on the board there. Carries even gets the D-Mech, but this is very little time left for Mega.
Silver lining here for Mega is that they've still been saving a few of these ultimates. Graceful now, just going to reset the mech, come back into the fight, and for AHQ, looking pretty stocked up. Dizzy going to get that Tactical Visor. The only one that doesn't have one is he who used a self-destruct earlier. Unfortunately, Dizzy took his kill.
That's going to be at long last the Dragon Blade, but instantly responded with a sound barrier. It's a Nano Boost Tactical Visor as well, and it's just all too much damage for Mega, who do not have any more defensive ultimates. White, unless he gets an amazing Deadeye, is not going to be able to do much in this fight. Goes down to Rapid on the side, and Aaron keeps the cart on lockdown. He and Tita are just going to kind of swing their arms at each other for a while, but it is going to be Tita going down. Graceful as well will lose the mech, and probably the life not shortly after. Apudo, last man standing on the point. That's going to be the hold for AHQ. That was not a lot of distance.
Yep. Very difficult situation for Mega to play in now. What they really got to hope for is a full A hold. If not a full A hold, force into the overtime on A and then get very aggressive out the gates onto B. That's something that they nearly achieved on Hollywood. So if we want to go back to Hollywood a little bit, what were the win conditions and what were the successful plays that Mega did play on that? If they can tap into that and bring it over to Dorado, this can still be their window to victory, but it is a very short and narrow sort of opportunity.
That attack honestly really reminded me of my first girlfriend. Just didn't get very far.
Rip. Tire. I don't
yeah, all right.
I only know your current girlfriend, so I don't know. I'm not too sure who you're referring to on that one, but...
Hey, I have had previous girlfriends, all right? This isn't the only one.
Before my time.
Before your time, yeah. This is before I met you, actually.
Yeah.
So
How many years BA before AVRL?
Before AVRL. It kind of works better on my end, because like for you, it's like years BP. Yeah, that was.
How was your life BP before
Yeah,
Pixie?
that was before Pixie. Yeah.
My life was good. No, it was.
I
life
imagine.
was the best.
I imagine things were a lot less interesting, a lot quieter.
A lot less dad jokes.
Less dad
That's
jokes.
not just because I don't have a dad. It's also
less facial hair. Less. It was quieter, much quieter actually. Well, man, speaking of quiet, it's a quiet night in Dorado that these two teams are about to horribly disturb with the sounds of gunfire.
It's a pretty loud night for AHQ, though. They've been
Yeah.
firing shots, and so far, Mega's been taking shots. So now you expect Mega to bring some firepower of their own.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe Mega had too many shots before the game.
Maybe I haven't had enough. We'll see.
This is going to be Hehe onto the Widowmaker. Not actually running Dizzy on that one. He is going to swap off. Oh, he missed that lip. That's suboptimal, Hehe.
Yeah. Back to the training room on that.
Suboptimal Diva play. Suboptimal Widow play. Maybe optimal Diva play. This is also going to be the pharmacy out of Dizzy and Crappy, something that they very much favor. Something that certainly Mega can expect to come out on Dorado when they have anticipated it with the Soldier pick.
That's the other thing, though, right? Because they do play directly into Mega's pick here, but Mega have to make the space count. If they can win the ground battle, then suddenly Caputo has the angles to really take down the pharmacy. That's going to be their focus here. But AHQ have done a reasonable good job of just controlling the space. You already see this cart movement is fairly good. Dizzy now controlling the flank as well, and Mega just struggling to find positioning.
Oh dear, catching NZNR as well on the setup, and a
He's
Puto
not
going to
done.
go down. Yeah, because all of the members of Mega had to kind of move into that open ground. White does get a nice shot onto Crappy. It takes the res off the table, but the ground is owned by AHQ now. There's very little Mega can do to turn that around. They do take Dizzy off the table, but with those close respawns and Rapid still going off, this is on the cusp of being a cap, and Mega are still actually getting pressured away from this fight.
We talk about the fact that
Oh.
for Mega, if they
Oh.
want to win this, they have to
Whoa.
point a hold, and so far, the kill's starting to finally come in.
That was a surprise just at the very end. Graceful able to get a kill in pilot form. Then they get the mech out of Hehe. It's only going to stop up AHQ for a moment because the respawns are about to come in, but at least Mega do get to fully regroup.
And AHQ are nearing a little bit of a power spike here where a lot of ultimates do come online. The one that they are missing is carries, but with the res in play, you can expect AHQ to get quite aggressive here and not be punished too much. White, if he finds a good angle, takes Crappy out early, that turns things around quite rapidly.
Yeah, well, that's the rocket barrage onto White's position, but a lot of it actually gets blocked up. That's maybe not the maximum usage out of that ult. White's still in the picture and could still get that big shot off. Rapid getting pressured out. Transcendence coming in from NZNR. There isn't an ultimate that can match that. Aputo opening up with the tactical visor. Crappy needs to commit a res here pretty soon to make this one count, but he needs to get a good position to catch all three. There's the res out. Now they've got to turn it back around. They've got some ultimates to do it, but Crappy does go down. They haven't converted any kills just yet. That's the shot that White's been looking for. They do still have a bit of pressure coming out of Dizzy, but now they're a little bit lean on healers. It's only carriers. Now it's not carriers at all. And this is actually a bit of a stabilization out of Mega. They do lose White in the mix, but AHQ are going to have to back up here. Just kind of lick their wounds for a moment.
That was a good counterplay against a Resurrection, and usually it's not up to a Widowmaker play to do that, so pretty well done by Mega, all things considered, and now we are starting to look in the face of a potential first camp hold, but Mega, they still have, you know, this kind of composition isn't really in your face. It's still very prone to an AHQ lineup that can dive at you, so for AHQ, they have the time to get it done. The cart movement is good, but that is the time running out now, so gotta be concerned.
Because of the closeness, relatively speaking, of those respawns for AHQ, they can afford to just get beaten back a little bit as long as they don't get completely routed a number of times. But if they take too long, that doesn't count for much. Good pressure. There's the sound barrier, though, to save Eric and Dizzy. And yeah, now they get the counterattack in. Aputo going down to Rapid. And White immediately pressured out the moment he retakes the position. And off the back of that massive string of kills, AHQ should be able to get onto this point. They do lose Dizzy, but it's not really going to count for too much. Even as the clock starts to run a little thin, What's trying to stay in this one as best as he can, actually, and demaking Hehe is good news for them. Graceful and Hehe both get to re-mech. Mega can still kind of go for a contest here.
Mega have slowed things down, considering going for a contest here would actually be rather ill-advised. They need to be setting up for B now. Understand that A has probably been lost. One of the win conditions is actually to let A go over in the overtime. They're
going for it. Eric had the Primal Rage, but he died to the Tactical Visor. Now Dizzy gets his own Tactical Visor, though, and he can get more done, but Aputo's got a chunk. There's the kills that they need here. AHQ to maybe get it over the line, but White isn't going to go down without a fight, and Aputo is still in this one. Now they're really relying on these respawns, and AHQ, they're actually losing members now. Rapid, he's the only one in, and yeah, White is indeed doing it. He's just barely staying alive. They need to kill these members as they respawn. Need to kill Rapid. Need to kill Eric now that Rapid's dead. They need to stop these members fighting the point, and they've done it. I don't believe it. Mega are going to tie up the series and take themselves to match point.
And if the color existed in a casino, usually they tell you to bet on black. This time I'm betting on white because when it really counts at the end of the day. Look, he brings out a Widowmaker, lands the headshots, comes back on the Tracer, saves the day in a scenario where actually AHQ looked like they were going to get it. AHQ probably should have gotten this cap over, and for Mega, a very risky recontest, but that would have really cost them if they had failed that recontest. AHQ pushes through with a lot of momentum. They would have snowballed directly into a win. So the safer play would have been to back off, but Mega, they wanted to go in for it. They took the big risk and it pays out.
Certainly, had they lost that fight, there was still the opportunity that they were going to be able to hold later on down the line. So maybe that was the reasoning for taking the risk. And like you said,
it's not enough down the line, though.
But the thing is, there wasn't much space. This thing, it would have been slim. The risk paid off. But again, now with that, they actually get to tie up the series 2-4-2. Not going to get that 3-1 with the reverse sweep. It is not going to be the exact same result as first time around, and they get to go to their own pick for hybrid. Now, when we feel they probably should have won Hollywood, now you've got to feel that they're a little bit more favored coming into this last hybrid. The one concern you've got to have is what if they pick Eichenwald?
Well, who knows?
They pick it a lot and they never look good on it.
That's the thing is, you know, with the way they're playing now, with what they're running, maybe they can get it to work. And the evidence is kind of in Dorado because what was nearly achieved in Hollywood was that nice point A hold, and now into Dorado, they managed to get it done, so they make up for those mistakes. Yeah. They show this is actually what we plan to do. This is how we execute. It was totally unorthodox, but it was just enough for AHQ. They got to go back to the drawing board just a little bit and figure out that little final part for them, because it did look good for the most part, but just right when it counted. Look, white coming in was phenomenal. Yeah,
and the thing is, every other time when we got to right when it counted, it has actually been AHQ doing it. Let's take a look at AHQ doing it, because this was where they stopped up the cart, and it didn't really get much further than that. So honestly, on the whole, AHQ just controlled these fights. They'd got a really good pick on Apudo just before this, which allowed them to occupy this high ground, and every single dive that came out just didn't quite go off. Apudo took a Helix rocket straight to the face here, and then White, who was on that far balcony, got spotted and pressured out while the divers of AHQ were getting aggressive. There was just no way Mega could get into that fight, and the unfortunate thing was they'd used up ultimates as well.
And that was one of the really difficult fights for Mega because they didn't really look like they had the initiative. We have a lot of problems here with Mega choosing their fights and how they want to engage. And Apudo, look, he went in, the rest of the team was kind of there as well. And one of the problems for Mega on that Dorado B was at either point for their initial pushes, they lose either Apudo or they lose White, sometimes even both as well. That Helix rocket kill, I think, was immediately followed up by Dizzy getting a long-range kill with just a regular soldier gun onto White on the other side of the battlements of Dorado B. So, I mean, Mega just never really got that coordination together. Let's take a look at the next replay now in another attempt. This one is going to be the final moments. And
this is the thing, right? It was right at the end. You see actually how far the payload gets here. And again, this is that final distance. It's basically where it was in that initial fight. But because they had to be moving the payload while also trying to pressure the fight, suddenly they actually had to do too many things at once. And on the whole, it was just quick shutdown from AHQ. There was no fight that Mega actually won after they capped out A. That's the truth of things there, right? And that was off the back of actually the ability to snowball. They took a very good aggressive position, but AHQ were able to just break out of it with a couple of key kills, and from there, they just controlled the ground constantly. It's a lot of what we see on point B of Eichenwald, specifically out of Mega, where they just struggled to break the enemy team on that high ground.
Yeah, so, you know, Mega at the end of the day, they didn't manage to get the cart towards the final section. That would have been a very safe place for them. Let's go to the next replay now. We're already back onto A, and this is AHQ trying to push on through with this pharmacy. Very early rocket barrage, but they just never really get White. Good response by Graceful right away with that Matrix. And this is where you're expecting the triple res play to come out of crappy as well. But it was actually White after that. They managed to pick up a lot of kills despite a big res.
And the thing you've got to say as well is Dizzy may have actually just been better off. Sure, you've got to kill the Widowmaker or you die quite quickly, but maybe that rocket barrage would have been better placed somewhere else while Eric was diving out White, going for it that way instead. The res coming through there was huge, but like you said, White instantly converted kills off the back of it. Crappy, crucially, was one of the members that died, which means Dizzy's actually not safe in the air anymore, and Eric spent a lot of time trying to force White out of this fight. All you really do is take like half a member out of the picture when you're chasing chasing down the Widowmaker, because really the rest of these members here from Mega were the ones doing the damage for the remainder of that fight. After getting that one headshot, White didn't really need to do much more. Eric was kind of wasting his time.
Yeah, well, it's kind of 50-50 at that sort of stage. You either leave White be and he does continued more damage. Everyone just picks up more kills. Eric kind of has to go for him. No one else was going for him. The only other option was Dizzy, was the other person. The rocket barrage, I mean, at the stage of fully committing a rocket barrage to one player like that, that's when you know, A, you're respecting that player a lot, and B, you're really spending a lot of resources just onto one guy, and even then the rocket barrage, Graceful was at the right place at the right time, Matrix blocked the whole thing out, and Eric ended up being the only player that killed White on multiple occasions anyway, but that was usually in scenarios where White had already done his job, and at that point his death didn't matter.
And it was taking a long time as well, as the thing. Eric would kind of pressure him out, White can just kind of bump over to that far balcony. Eric can't really follow then, so he's got to kind of come back to the fight, then White repositions, Eric's like, I've got to kill him, and when he was killing, it just took too long, frankly. The reality is, actually, that pharmacy comp was really well reacted to by Mega, and they also executed on the pieces they needed to counter out that composition. Like you said, by the point where you're committing a whole rocket barrage onto the one person, that one person is having a huge effect that is stopping your team from executing on what it wants to do. And the failure of that ultimate to connect, which was again good reaction by Mega, just kind of cost AHQ a lot of time on the clock. They swapped it up immediately after that, but by then it was really just down to Mega to only win one more fight, which is exactly what happened.
You got to think as well, you know, outside the two headshots, the res was good, brought them back up to a full 6, but they couldn't get enough kills after that, and White still had enough damage, still had enough kill pressure that he just turned things back around. It was honestly just a well executed sort of gameplay out from Mega. Still very unorthodox. Who really runs a Widowmaker on A defense? Not a lot of people. That kind of threw AHQ off, and it was just enough for Mega to get that win at the end of the day. But with that now, 2-2 in the series, there's going to be one more match to decide who gets to take this first matchup of the evening, and that is all going to happen right after this break. Welcome back to OPC Season 2. We're still into the first match, but now the final map will decide the winner of Mega versus AHQ. And they've been having a blow for blow so far, 2-2 apiece. The final one's going to be on hybrid.
This is the same situation that Mega put Blank in just yesterday. It happened in a different way. They lost the first two, then won the next two. Then Blank closed it out on what was a slightly less than close Hollywood, all things considered. And actually, Mega's Hollywood against AHQ, looked a lot closer. But in this time around, right, they had the opening blow. Now it's been the turnaround at Dorado to take it to match point, and they get to do it on their own side pick. I do wonder what they're going to go to, because I did mention I don't really want to see an Eichenwald for a number of reasons, but well, they've actually got a really good opportunity to close out the series, which actually, I mean, it hurts AHQ more than it helps Mega, but it does help Mega crucially avoid relegations.
It's going to be Kings Row, but I was going to say, even if it was Eichenwald, maybe you do want to see it, because so far, it has been Mega Thunder turning things around. So for Mega to then finish out on Eichenwald, should there be a win against AHQ, would really send a message. But it's going to have to happen on Kings Row, if at all.
Yeah, if at all, that's the thing. It's going to really come down to this. Look, there were other maps along the way that you do feel Mega could have, and maybe even should have won. I did pick out specifically Hollywood. There were opportunities for them to win Volskaya as well, but you do have to respect that AHQ did it when it counted. On the other hand, though, Mega totally did it when it counted on Escort, far more than AHQ did, and that's AHQ, who in their own right had a really great defense on the streets phase of Dorado. So it's really hard to call this one. It's really hard to say who is now more favored at this particular juncture. It's really just one of those, you know, tighten up your seatbelt, strap in kind of moments, because this could be Mega about to basically play spoiler for AHQ.
And if it's difficult to sort of determine who's going to win, it's even more difficult to determine exactly how they're going to make that happen. We've seen all sorts of compositions tonight, all sorts of players on different roles that you didn't expect. I mean, you got Dizzy on Torbjorns, you got, you know, Incident now onto a support. It's just everything feels a little bit up in the air. Some semblance of more traditional gameplay, more so on the AHQ side. And it could just be a photo finish.
Yeah, you want to see the AHQ that was able to take out Flash Wolves, and they actually did that on what was the 5th map of a 5-game series. So that's the AHQ that can win this, but the AHQ so far has been solid, if a little inconsistent in places, and the saving grace has been Mega's own inconsistencies right now. But it's got to be said, Mega are looking a little bit tidier now compared to a couple of spots in those middle 2 maps. AHQ themselves need to just step it up that last little bit, which we know they can.
This will be the final opportunity now for both teams as well, and we've already sort of pointed out the stakes here for both teams. For Mega, it is avoiding the bottom 2, as well as having a really good showing against the current top 4 team, but for AHQ, maybe even a little bit more, the fact that they're so close to holding on to that playoffs position. Them losing this now undoes the work they did to beat Flash Wolves, because that win against Flash Wolves was, on paper, an unexpected win, and one extra point victory that they have against a team like Blank, that they now have against a team like Hong Kong Attitude to really challenge them for that top 3 even. And losing to Mega throws that out the window.
Exactly, and that's the thing as well. They would be relying on the head-to-head against Blank. They would be relying on winning that match when it comes about. But if they lose to Mega, where Blank won, you've got to admit that Blank look a little bit more favored, therefore, for that head-to-head match. Yeah. But that is all conjectural, and that is all the big if of if AHQ lose here. But they are a team that can get it done when it counts.
And they're going to have to get it done just as Blank got it done as well. And by the way, it wasn't an easy one for Blank. They nearly didn't get it done either. But if AHQ want to prove they're a better team than Blank, even before they face Blank, this is where it has to happen.
And yeah, has to is one way to put it. I mean, I don't want to call it dire, but you don't want to have been in this position in the first place. This is going to be the setup so far. Getting a lot of pressure onto these members of AHQ. Pause coming out here, and everybody take a breather.
Yeah, I'm taking a breather.
All right.
But it is also, you have to, when you think about Mega as well, they just came off the back of a really tight best-of-5 full 5-map series. What a heartbreaker it would be to do that again against AHQ and to not win it.
And the thing is as well, right, you'd be looking at both of those. Even if you win this one today, actually, you'd be looking at both of those and you'd go, you know what? We could have beaten those two teams. And then you've got to start to think, you know what? We could have made top 4 if we had got the right wins at the right time, if we got more early enough. It's kind of a similar situation almost to Hong Kong Attitude at the end of last season, where they were able to beat AHQ twice and then blank once before AHQ and blank both went into playoffs in the top 3. If Mega can pick up this win here, then they've got to consider themselves a legitimate contender for playoffs in, excuse me, in a kind of future tournament against these same teams. You've got to say that that's relatively where the skill level might sit. You wouldn't kick yourself for going, you know, you don't want to sit there and go, I could have done it, we could have done it, we should have done it, because that's not really fair, right? That's only going to get you down. You can't celebrate the success, but that would actually be the case that, hey, maybe if they had picked it up a little earlier, they actually could have made playoffs.
And this is about the part in the tournament where for Mega you do wish there was another round robin, because you do feel like that even if you don't make the top 4 now, which it doesn't look like they will, even if they beat AHQ, in spirit they may have.
Well, let's see, he losing his mech to be the first casualty of the fight. And Mega getting good pressure down, but Dizzy not displaced just yet. And the respawns are a little bit closer for AHQ. He getting very quickly back into the mech now. So Mega, again, they just kind of need to aggress here.
While AHQ are just kind of holding down the fort, and AHQ actually losing a lot of times, if you're even Mega, you're not too concerned just yet, because 1 minute's gone and it doesn't feel like AHQ have done anything significant. What they have achieved is really forced Mega out of rotation, and now it looks like AHQ are in the defending spot.
They kind of are, and they took a long time, like you said, to get to it, but now they can sort of move onto the point itself. They have to cover their sort of rear quarters as they do so, but with the sound barrier, they can get aggressive, matched out by the Transcendence. Saputo needs to be positioned well. They get the catch on Eric, and now they can open out the Tactical Visor. That's a Transcendence from Keres to keep them largely safe throughout it, but gets Dizzy in the Tactical Visor, who was using his own Tactical Visor, and now Mega in the driver's seat in this fight. No counter trades coming through for AHQ. It was an expensive fight from Mega, but you've got to say it was equally expensive for AHQ.
For Mega, though, they played the pacing so well, they understood it based on time. Look, 2 minutes is nearly gone, and AHQ have only had 1 attack. Mega, it was never up to them to make anything happen. AHQ were pressured to make the first move, so AHQ used a sound barrier first, and Mega just counterplayed, and they chose the right attack formation, and they got it in.
Ooh, good damage onto Tituat, but the pulse bomb into Keres slows them up a lot. And if Tituat can survive here, this is big for Mega already, and indeed that is the case. AHQ are really working overtime to get these members down, but they need to not overextend, given that they were 1 support down. Ooh, just barely keeping Hihi's mech. That would have been a big catch to waste time.
A D-mech would have been very bad for AHQ. It doesn't feel like much has happened, but already we're into the later half, the bottom end of this A push for AHQ. Yeah, the stage now where it's staring down the face of potentially almost only 2 attempts.
Eric goes down just as the sound barrier comes out and ends in an arc and match with his own Transcendence. That means AHQ just ended up having to pull back from that one, and he used the self-destruct as well. Very lean on ultimates. They have to get a big Tactical Visor. Dizzy instantly committing with it, but he's not got anything just yet. Sound barrier is now out for Mega to keep them safe throughout this one, and Aputo's own Tactical Visor does get blocked up by Keres. That's the good dive from Eric onto the backliners, but they're just jostling for position. Finally starting to open out some kills. Eric getting very aggressive, and the convert onto Tituat is a big one, and they've got the damage now on these remaining few members of Mega who are forced way back, but they can actually heal up, respawn, and come in for another contest.
This is still going to be a really good hold possibility for Mega when you consider that AHQ don't have ultimates to really run through here. Why still just going to buy a little bit of time? Mega coming in. Uh-oh, this is not good.
That's
from
too
Mega.
late, and instantly Graceful turned tail and ran, but it was just too late. Mega did not commit at the right time. They get a couple of kills on the back end, actually, just to make it a little worthwhile, but with all those members dying, they lose the opportunity for an early hold on Streets phase.
And this is just a big misfire from Mega. They had the good macro play to say, okay, we're going to lose some members, but we're going to make this B push really happen. But then they had to come in for an ill-fated attack that now has cost them so much positioning and so much setup time.
Yeah, and they have some good ultimates coming up on rotation as well, but now rotation being the key word, they're really going to have to get huge mileage out of each one. So far, they've generally just traded blow for blow in terms of ultimates.
We did talk about the fact that AHQ didn't come in with a big snowball advantage, but now it does feel like they have it. They got ultimates coming online just in time for this, and Mega want to get aggressive, but AHQ should be able to respond.
And the Primal Rage from T2Watt was kind of forced, and the good Pulse Bomb onto White as well, already on the back foot. Mega, they're committing a lot of ultimates here, but AHQ, they're just happy to wait these one outs. They can avoid Aputo's sidelines. Heck, they're going to get a kill for good measure. And now, when that's all said and done, they can go aggressive. Mega committing their ultimates after members are dead. How could you make this mistake time and time again?
And this is Mega now, got the dollar bills in their eyes. They saw the victory onto A. They said, we're going to get the full hold here, but AHQ continually punishing. And now this is starting to look like AHQ's push on Hollywood all over again. Struggling to get A, but as soon as we go into Streets, as soon as we get onto B, it's all AHQ steamrolling through.
If AHQ fully cap out C here, Mega will have done something horribly wrong. And again, losing White off the table in the 1 versus 1. The commit is just falling to bits from Mega as T2Watt dives without the supports on him at the right times. The self-destruct from Graceful finding less than nothing, and AHQ just getting pick after pick. Mega have just kind of fallen apart. Where is the coordination from this team?
Even on a micro level as well, the fact that Eric dives into the back line, just stalls out Apuro, makes sure Enzinar can get anything done, runs back to his own team, drops a barrier down. Apuro has no impact on that speed fight whatsoever, and AHQ still just looking very comfortable. The snowball has not ended just yet. Double DPS ultimates, crappy sound barrier on the way as well. AHQ looking to continue this.
And you'd think, right, by now Mega surely should have ultimates, right? But no, because they've kept committing them into losing situations where AHQ didn't need to commit their own ultimates. Sticky onto Aputo to open this one out, and Rapid is just consistently doing this. Now they're able to force out the Transcendence because they commit their tactical visor, and now it's just weathering the storm. They're still dropping the damage on, and they drop T2Watt before he can Primal Rage again. Good stick onto Dizzy is maybe a saving grace, but Rapid's still getting aggressive. They've not really stopped up AHQ yet. Aputo finally able to get aggressive,
it's
immediately got to hide because of the self-destruct, and Rapid is still converting kills. Mega just can't seem to get a leg up in the fight.
And Mega running out of they're running out of opportunities here. AHQ is still really dug up on this card. You're just using more and more ultimates. Eventually you expect Mega to overpower AHQ, but it's just not really happening.
T2Watt commits the Primal Rage. Graceful doesn't commit the self-destruct. They do not adequately preserve the lives of their tanks, and it gives AHQ the opportunity. A triple kill from Eric is what they do with that opportunity. Even though he dies now, the payload is right towards the end. Rapid again kills White in the 1 versus 1. Finally, the self-destruct can be committed from Graceful, but he doesn't even get to remech. T2Watt instantly dying on the respawn, and it doesn't matter that Eric died way back when, because AHQ, the members that are here, are just getting kill after kill after kill. Mega, they have at no point felt coordinated since losing point A, and now they're on the cusp of losing point C to AHQ as well, unless the sound barrier can really pull some weight.
And that's the only thing left that they can really rely on. Enzinar, though, 2% away from Transcendence. It is just time, extra time. If they can force AHQ to cap into the overtime, they'd still something, but it is now finally the opportunity where Mega hold on. And actually AHQ, the tables turn very rapidly here. 17 seconds remaining.
Yeah, rapidly indeed, but NZNR did also Transcendence when everyone was dead, so as they finally get a fight win, you still have to question the coordination.
Well, here comes AHQ now, a lot of ultimates in hand. This will be a real shame if they don't actually touch the card in time. Luckily,
they're getting
Great
on it.
Sicarius gets there.
Yeah, and that's huge, having those defensive ultimates. And by the way, remember how NZNR whiffed a Transcendence earlier? Double kill off the self-destruct from Hehe, and that's all it's going to take to push it over the line, surely from HQ. The gong sounds, the payload is delivered, and that is going to be a full cap out. It does go into the overtime for AHQ, but it happens.
And that's the incredible thing, right? Because it felt like a really one-sided affair as soon as we got into B. It was a lot of AHQ on the kill feed. Mega didn't really have too much presence, except right for the end where they forced AHQ to reconsolidate for the next offense right into the overtime. But the fact that we got into overtime at all, actually Mega played a lot of time out. They forced a lot of fights. This is one thing that Mega have done well, despite the fact that they lost the majority of their fights, is they made sure AHQ were fighting for every single inch of that cart distance, even if they were losing.
It was a little unfortunate for them though, because the way they were doing that was consistently just throwing ultimates into the mix. So yeah, look, you buy time with each and every one of those, but you were also constantly on the back foot. Had it not been for the fact that A took so long to cap, that would have been a losing strategy for Mega. And by the way, the cap did still go through. Short happen in overtime. There are better ways to stall on streets though. And those ways are you bleed ultimates from your enemy and then you full hold. You don't just toss in ultimates. You don't just toss in primal rages and transcendences that can't get anything done.
Well, this feels like the sort of stall phenomena you see usually on a C cap, or for Assault it would be a B, when someone goes onto a main, usually that's either a DPS or one of the supports, and you start to throw away win conditions. At that point, it's no longer about stabilizing, it's no longer about winning the fight and getting a full hold, it's all about bleeding as much time as possible. And look, Mega, they achieved that part, but it never really seemed like they had the win condition down pat. How are they actually ever going to properly stabilize and potentially force a full hold? Now, right at the end there, it might have been possible, but AHQ banked up just enough ults to get it across the line. So, what was a very clean, slow, controlled sort of A-hold turned into a bit of a rush.
Yeah, it was kind of chaos. The coordination did just seem to fall to bits, but they now have the opportunity to turn that back around, get the coordination down pat. Graceful does walk into the trap, but
it's okay.
Yeah, he's going to be just fine. That's the ideal member to walk into the trap, really.
Or the Winston.
Yeah, or the Winston, exactly. If they can get a good aggressive push, get it done quickly, if Mega can get into time bank with time, then they're off to a good start.
All right, well, once again, going to have to see what Rapid can do on this Junkrat. He had some good success on some of the earlier maps that we've seen, but he's got to be able to repeat that now in AHQ. Exactly, they've given up a third, so that's not very good.
Yeah, it's because Dizzy's been pressured back and Rapid himself can't affect the points. That's now 2/3. They've got to finally touch the point, but in all that time, Mega have got themselves set up. He's going to lose his mech as they commit. Dizzy still isn't really set up. Apudo, on the other hand, is great Helix Rocket. Now the Tactical Visor is going to be the secure for them, and they don't even need to really commit much more. Actually, may have to, just barely, thanks to that sound barrier, but doesn't even seem to be that that's the case because the cap goes through. Now they can get aggressive, catch a route, 15 carries, getting Rapid as well. Doesn't even matter really that Apudo goes down because of the closeness of the respawn. The payload is underway, and White is able to go aggressive now.
The final kills is kind of like, take someone down with you. Rapid was always going to go down in that sort of scenario. For Mega, it slows down their ability to really chase kills. You don't have the extra damage output from Apudo. So now AHQ have some opportunity to try and find another setup. There is someone quite far up. I think it might be, I have no idea who that is with.
I believe it's White. He's crouching. It's that confusing silhouette. That is going to be a nice Riptide out. Oh, doesn't get anything, unfortunately, not enough damage. Now the pressure is coming in already from Mega. They just want to get payload distance, and that means AHQ can have to wheel back around to defend in this side. Losing Hehe's mech as well. They're lacking in the tank department. Unless Dizzy gets a big tactical visor, actually, I think even now it would be folly to commit it. They just have to go for this final contest on B.
This is where the speed and aggression of Mega start to really pay off as well, because AHQ just haven't had the pacing that they want to. They're trying to slow down the gameplay, but they're not achieving that. Rapid now changing onto the Tracer as well. They're going to try and match a little bit of the timing here from Mega, and they're going to have one opportunity before the cart goes over on B.
And there they go, big contest instantly coming in, but White is just sitting here looking for someone. Ooh, good eat on the pulse bomb out of Hehe, but there's still these resources for Mega, and Dizzy has to commit off the tactical visor, has to get a lot done, but it might not be possible. Eric just barely staying alive, but Dizzy isn't actually getting anything anyway as Tidua in his face. They get the convert, and they're able to preserve a good number of ultimates with it as well. If they can hold on to Graceful's mech, not have to wait for that back, which is indeed the case, they've got a heap of time. This is exactly what they needed.
Yeah, Mega hungry for this win as well. 5 minutes and 17 seconds is very difficult for AHQ to hold on. Much more difficult, amplified by the fact that they don't have ultimates already tied over the wave of Mega, who now are charging their own. So many more coming up online. Apudo's got a lot done for tactical visor. Ooh. Even without it, he gets a kill.
Yeah, kills crappy. Carrier's getting pressured as well. As the tactical visor to secure it, the nano boost on Eric just isn't getting that same mileage. Even gets Hehe out of the mech off the back end for good measure. They do get a couple of trade backs, so they should be able to stabilize at a moment here. But before that happens, Mega are going to get a ton of payload distance, enough so that they're probably one good fight win away from closing.
Yeah, they're still getting a lot of kills here, so they did use a little bit of ultimates to get past this corner. Now AHQ, though, you're still wondering, where is the win condition for this team? How are they actually going to stabilize here? Because they don't have the opportunity to really stall.
Dizzy!
At the base.
He's getting so hard pressured, pulse bomb out, but he's able to stay alive. Now White's the one who He's got to be careful, but Apudo is still the one getting more work done ultimately, and they've just got too much damage for AHQ to deal with. Now Crappy's dead. Eric forced the Primal Rage. Graceful, if he can self-destruct in time, yes he can. Gets to preserve the mech. As they close out the damage, they catch Rapid with a fireball from the Zenyatta. He will remech, but now Apudo with the tactical visor is looking to close it out here and now if he can so help it. Good pressure onto him, but the pressure is now going back the other way as Mega keep it up. They get another one. They're gonna get Hee, the pulse bomb. They don't even need to get kills. They're just getting damage. Now Dizzy's dead, and with 3 minutes 50, they get themselves a cap. That is beautiful out of Mega.
It's a winning scenario as well because AHQ only kept into the overtime. Now in this flip around, AHQ, they have to defend a full third with 3 minutes and 50 seconds on Mega's timer. That's so doable for Mega when you consider how clean Mega's A attack was. It didn't take too long. It was a very different sort of attack to what AHQ had. AHQ had this very long-winded setup that didn't really achieve too much. 2 minutes bled out just on one attack. But for Mega, they rolled on through easily.
I refuse to call this a potential upset either, because actually, we know Mega have had this in them the whole Season 2 so far, and there have even been times where they've actually got some really solid wins through. They are ahead of Matchy for a reason, and they were behind Matchy in Season 1. This is looking good. They came close against Hong Kong Attitude. They came close against Blank, but now against AHQ, they are closer than ever before, and it looks like they're gonna do it.
Well, it feels like a realization of their true potential, right? Because this is the Mega that we've been waiting to see. This is the Mega that could have and maybe even should have beaten Blank yesterday. So now, finally, Mega. It shouldn't be a heartbreak situation, but you never want to say never too soon. Don't want to celebrate just yet until Mega can actually do this.
AHQ are not going to fall into that Junkrat trap again. And because there is no Junkrat, hey, neither are Mega, I suppose. But last time, AHQ basically gave up 2/3 before starting a fight. They cannot afford to give up even 1/3.
I think AHQ need to match the tempo here that Mega
Oh
like to
dear.
pull out.
Oh
not
no!
gonna happen, not
There's
gonna
already
happen.
2 members dead, and now he DMX'd, and did AHQ just phone it in or something? That's the third. That's the upset. Mega are going to do it. They play spoiler to AHQ, and that barely lasted a second on that time bank attack.
And this has been Mega's best win so far of OPC Season 2, and AHQ got to be feeling that one into the morning. And I'll tell you what, Blank are the best friends of Mega right now, because not only did Blank beat them yesterday, but now Mega come back and beat Blank's closest competitor in the season, which is AHQ, giving Blank the best window of opportunity to now make that top 4.
Yeah, I mean, look, is it spoiler or is it Kingmaker? You've got a question, right? With that, AHQ are not in 4th place anymore. They have to win that head-to-head just to tie it up. This is about as ugly as it gets for AHQ, who were on the cusp of being so secure in 4th place. Now the playoffs, they're just maybe out of reach. It is way closer than they would ever have liked it to be, and for Mega as well. Having won this, having nearly beaten Blank, having nearly beaten Hong Kong Attitude, they've started to got to consider themselves as having always been real playoffs material. We've felt that that was the case from the start, and the evidence was there circumstantially, but now it is there writ large in that 3-1 win over AHQ, and what a win it was.
And it feels like the same story that Hong Kong Attitude had from Season 1, and certainly every single season there needs to be a Hong Kong Attitude. So far, at least, literally with the team, but also spiritually and what that means. Someone needs
Mega have the attitude.
Someone needs to be that team that kind of, you feel like they got a little something extra there, but in the early sort of round robins, they just can't pull out the wins they need. Then suddenly right at the end, this huge resurgence and they're beating teams that you did not expect they could.
And the thing you've got to take with this team as well is they are, in terms of the standings, just above that bottom 2 who are going to be facing relegations. And part of this for Mega has been avoiding relegations, but with that extra win against AHQ, a team that right now Matchy can't seem to even dream of beating, you have to say that there are the 2 teams that are going to face relegations, and then there is everyone else. That is the standard of play. All of them could make top 4.
Let's get into replays now, and this is going to be the offense from AHQ after taking a very long time.
very, very long time. They took about 2 minutes on the first push, which was a failed one, and then we're off to a bad start here. They start to turn it back around and luckily do get the respawn for Eric. He is just a little bit closer, and you can see him on his way back into the fight now. And there's this situation now where Mega were just a little lean on ultimates. This is where the conversion slowly starts happening. It's the kill on NZNR to open it up. They start getting some very real pressure on Mega in terms of positioning, and then it's all just about conversion. They can at last get aggressive, and Eric is, as always, a huge proponent on that. With him rejoining the fight, he was able to get the dives to close out some members.
I actually wish that replay went on just a bit longer, because at the end of it was when Mega decided to come back in, and I called it ill-fated because that's exactly what it felt like. The timing was just a bit off. Even if the timing was good, it was 50-50 still, because it was AHQ set up in position, had the initial damage. It's Mega trying to dive into a defending AHQ squad, but because the time was completely gone, never had the chance to go into the next replay. Now we're already on C.
And look, this was just... that ill-fated contest at the end of A kind of set the tone for the rest of it. This is the final moment here where Mega do actually just barely get a stabilization, and it's just a couple of kills with them having the slightly closer respawn. They'd already got Eric before that. He's not back in this fight just yet. Then they catch Crappy, and then they start to get a few extra in the mix here. Getting the one on He's mech means he's not really able to defend Dizzy and Rapid. Finally, with them exposed, Eric does rejoin, but they're able to actually get some damage down. Dizzy had to commit to the payload, which left him vulnerable to the rest of the respawners, and then now, with the slight numerical advantage, plus that sound barrier, it is eventually the stabilization here for Mega. I'll tell you though, it didn't last long.
It didn't last long, but it did last long enough that the force into the overtime happened, and that's what's most important here. And it did feel like ever since that A blunder that Mega had, it was them onto the back foot, playing damage control, make the best of a bad scenario. And what a bad scenario it was when AHQ continually rolled on through. AHQ just looked like they could not be stopped. But for Mega, just trying to hold on to anything they could, trying to just slow AHQ down right to the end. And because they slowed it down into the overtime, that's what eventually got them the win. Because had AHQ capped out originally on their first momentum push with 40 seconds remaining, even though it's not much, we wouldn't be in an overtime scenario where AHQ have to hold 1/3. It would be a different scenario altogether.
Exactly. It's now taking a look at what was their initial attack, and actually it was just about as fast as what ended up being their time bank attack. I mentioned it here, AHQ set way, way back. You see where White has been able to get set up on this top side? He's so uncontested, right? They've got the full wraparound. They've got 2/3 before AHQ can even think about getting on the point. And then when they do, honestly, Mega was set up. AHQ just gave them all the time in the world and gave up all the positioning too. It was no surprise that the fight ended up going the way it did. And the only saving grace here for AHQ was that they demeched Graceful. They did actually get the catch on T-Watt, but with the respawns, it didn't really matter. The only reason the demech was useful was because Graceful at least had to charge the mech back up, and because of that, kind of rejoined the fight later than T-Watt, just in a funny way with how that mech recall works. But it didn't really amount to much anyway, because honestly, the point B attack was similarly quick for Mega.
And you got to look at Apuda there as well, because he got a tactical visor in a reasonable quick amount of time. He was such a proponent, a big factor of Mega's successful push on not just A, but also B and C as well. He was just getting so much work done. Huge highlight clip of him on C, just landing rockets after rockets, landing shot after shot, and even without using the ultimate, he was just getting it done, and you could see, not just from him, but everyone on the Mega side, how much they wanted that win.
You got to say as well, with that ill-fated attack, defense rather they made at the very end of A, it was what worked for them on Dorado. There was a different situation where on Dorado they almost kind of had to because of how little distance there was on B.
Yeah.
And we talked about that being high risk, high reward. It went off on Dorado, didn't go off there, and that was the risk factor, right? Is it just totally spun them out for the rest of it.
Well,
but you can at least understand the thread of logic for going for that. It was just that it was a little bit mistimed. But like you said, even had the timing been good, still 50-50. Now we take a look at what ended up being Mega's final push.
Mega did a decent job here. Already opened up with ultimates. Mind you, they had a lot of momentum. This is the big plays from Puda that we're talking about. Rocket kills after rocket kills, tactical visors as well. Some slowdown from guys like Rapid and Hiki, but otherwise it's just continual push on through. And AHQ just struggling to find their feet.
And the thing that was so incredible here is they were a couple of members down, which is normally an opportunity to stabilize. Mega respected that, so they backed off, but then they were still able to get other kills anyway, so they went, actually, we can now safely recommit to this payload. And then they crucially got some kills right about in here, as these respawners come in for themselves, they demech he isn't safe by the sound barrier. They start getting big pressure on, and no one is able to safely dive the backliners by this point. Not in the least Eric. He doesn't have the defense ultimates to do so. Goes in deep with the Primal Rage, but he's constantly having to pull back out because really, Apudo is just too well entrenched at this point.
And Apudo gets a second tactical visor here. It's the same fight, more or less. It's the same push. And Apudo does so much damage, he just keeps piling it on, and Elk now with the sound barrier just really cements this push on through, and White collecting up the final kills. Everything comes up big, and it all starts in that final moment with Enzinar getting the crucial headshot onto Rapid.
Exactly, and you even saw right at the end there, Apudo got himself a 3K, which resulted in pushing it over the line, and it felt very fitting. You kind of touched on it there. The positioning was good, sure, but he then maximized that, was constantly pumping out damage. I'd love to see like a damage chart out of that, because I feel like he must have done double of anyone else in that game.
Yeah, him and White really stepped it up across the entire evening tonight. Like White on multiple occasions on other maps. Dorado was a big proponent, and then you had a situation where it was Apudo on King's Row to finish things off, and for what it's worth, that sort of final contest that went really badly for Mega on A, I'm kind of glad that happened because it does show and gives a good example of what can go right and what can go wrong in those kind of scenarios. Now though, player of the game going to White on the Widowmaker.
I think this is pretty well deserved because this was basically what made the defense on Dorado on point A. There was also that risky last minute contest, but that was in itself very much helped out by White's performance on the Widowmaker. His picks onto these crucial members, the pressure he put onto Disney on the Pharah, really shut down that pharmacy combo to the point where they had to commit a rocket barrage onto just White alone, which then still didn't go off because it got blocked by Graceful. The fact that they ended up having to completely change up their strategy just because of White's one pick, and even then couldn't get it over the line, just tells you how influential that pick was in that situation. And it's kind of this influence that stretches beyond the game as well, because that was the game that then tied up the series, that put them in this situation here on King's Row, where they were able to pull out the win. Had that not happened, it would have been a 3-1 almost certainly.
Yeah, and it feels clutch, right? Like part of the reason why it was so important, I think Apudo overall had probably bigger impact across the series, and White had that one shining moment in Dorado, but you've kind of mentioned it. That was a turnaround point. That was their victory that then put themselves in a position of match point where they can actually close out the series, and that happens off the back of exceptionally good play by White. It just, how much it mattered was so monumental that ended up being where the turnaround begins.
Speaking of turnarounds, that is now, of course, the 3-2 victory, and in the standings now you see AHQ are now just behind Blank and Mega, much more secure away from those relegations. In fact, only one place separates these two. Let's now go into the post-match interview. Grab some thoughts from, I believe this is Graceful.
Okay, we got a few questions for you. And first of all, what do you think is the key point to win this match, you think?
So, the key point we have to win this match was the goal scoring. You noticed in our last game that we were last week, the team like the damage output, we can't survive long enough. So, we've been switching players and roles all season. Sat up all night last night. Okay, we're gonna tomorrow. We're gonna roll up. We want to beat them.
Okay.
他说，其实，在这一季当中，他们都一直在自己的团队内有尝试更换角色，像他自己也是。那他们也有在尝试因为他们是新的，加入很多新的队员，然后他们也尝试就是在这样的更换角色当中来决定说哪一个方式是对他们团队来讲是最好的。
不好意思，
我的问题是，就是你常常会为了队伍的配置而去更换你的位置，那关于这件事情，你有什么想法？
And as you said, you guys swap roles, and you played support, but now you are tank. What do you think about this?
So when we first started off in OPC, I actually played flex tank from the beginning, and then we swapped out of player Carlos and support, and now I'm back to flex tank again. So it's not that much of a big difference between swapping roles.
就像他刚刚说的，其实他们一直在，他也一直在尝试更换不同的角色。
So he's been changing up a lot in this team as well. He started off as a flex at the start of the season. It feels like because he already played flex, it's not much of a change up for him.
因为这样子突然调换位置是很困难的，对选手来说。那你是怎么快速的让自己能够在短短的一天内，让自己从不同的位置这样互相调整？对。
It's not easy to swap role as you are a support, but now you are a tank. And how do you adjust yourself in the game?
So the way of swapping roles is more like I would just play whenever the team needs. And for a while we've been struggling with like we have our backline. Elk is like really vocal, so he talks a lot from the back. But we didn't have someone in the front like talking and saying a lot of things. And me and Elk are the ones who are the most vocal in the team. So we just decided to split us up again and put me in the front.
他觉得还是团队沟通的问题，像他现在跟 Elk 都是坦克，然后他们其实有一些人负责可能跟前排的人沟通，那有些人可能跟后排的人沟通，所以他认为在调整自己的方面，他们在沟通方面有做了一些不同的调整，然后分工的部分。
谢谢谢谢。
OK， 谢谢 Grace Pro 接受我们的访问，我们再一次恭喜 Mega 获得这场比赛的胜利。这场比赛即将就要开始了，我们现在
after a successful victory against AHQ and yeah, really shines some light on some of the changes there. That does make a lot of sense as well, and it does feel like. And the best part is actually, it looked really risky, like oh they're changing all this stuff up right at the end of the tournament. But because they got this win, it really pays off.
It actually does. You're completely right there. And also speaking of communication, of course, the language has always been a factor here. And they had said that having a Puto, Entenat, and Titawat on the 2 DPSs plus Winston was really helping because they all communicate in Thai. But they feel here that the trade-off of getting White onto that DPS and making this change up is worth actually splitting that communication off 2 languages.
Right, well, with that, it's going to be Mega taking once again that first victory of the evening. Flashful Zamachi still to come, and then finishing off the evening with Limited Supreme and Blank Esports. So a lot more OPC action still to continue when we come back after this break. We'll see you soon.